academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Hello, how are you all doing today? This is Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It is what day today? It's Thursday.
Thursday.
It is Thursday.
Thursday.
The 3rd of December, 2020. And we're rolling down this hill quite fast, aren't we? In the Situation Room this morning with CT Muga. CT, good morning.
Good morning, Ndu.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Since we saw each other less than 24 hours ago.
Well, I was well then, and I thank the Almighty I continue to be well.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that.
Yes.
I, too, am well.
This is very good news. Now, are you well in the, should we say, normal Kenyan wellness, where when you ask how you are, you say, fine?
Yeah, but most people don't actually wait for that response. It's how are you? It's kind of put out there so that you just know that I'm asking a question.
I've
In
ticked
terms
the
of
box,
waiting for
end
an
of
answer.
story.
No. Yeah. In terms of waiting for an answer, nobody's really waiting for an answer.
So
right?
which one is it? How are you? And when you say fine, are you responding to the how are you, or are you simply just responding, should we say, the automatic button where the response is already predetermined?
Yeah, you're also ticking your own box.
Forget the ticking of the box. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. Now you're asking
See,
me.
now that is a good response. That tells me you're well.
I am.
I'm fine. Nothing. It gives you zero information.
Okay.
It just means you're able to speak.
But when you say all right, I'm not so bad, or KEMSA.
That one now means even less. Because like you're undecided what you really are. Well, okay. So why don't you finish with the search? Then when you're through with the wellness search, then you can now give us at least a brief in a sentence or two how you really are.
Maybe in terms of all honesty, if you actually sat down to hear how well or terrible somebody was, it would take you too long. That's why people you don't have time for that. You just, hello, how are you? Fine. Okay, moving on swiftly.
So when did we get to the point of understanding and believing that people don't really want to know how you are? And that how are you is just a greeting. It's not an inquiry into your well-being.
Which is what it should be, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is an inquiry into your well-being.
But then time just moves so quickly, then you're not really, I don't know if it's concerned, but you don't really remember to wait and get the answer for that question that you're asking. All right. Well, welcome to the Situation Room this morning, guys. Quite a number of things to look into today. Sitting in, Eric Latif is not with us today, but in time he will be back. So sitting in the room this morning with CT with you guys today, and quite a number of discussions to have. Today is celebrated as International World Disability Day, right? Those are some of the things that we'll be looking at today, having a conversation with those who steer things. International Day of Persons with Disabilities, promoting the rights and well-being of persons with disabilities. So we'll be having a couple of conversations around this today. We will be talking about those who are charged with the responsibility of making sure that the well-being of those with disabilities is actually looked into and taken care of. We'll also be looking at this in terms of leadership, and we'll speak with Westlands MP Timothy Wanyonyi later on in the day. And then we're going to look at more conversations, yes or no, and looking at whether there actually is a crossroads when it comes to the BBI and moving forward with that. So welcome and thank you for joining us. In a minute, we'll take a look at who else is with us in the room and also taking a look at what's happening in the news today. But for now, as we normally do, let's look at what's going on with coronavirus in the country. COVID-19 still continues to ravage around the world. We're looking at still high numbers, 64,188,950. Those are the number of cases that we're looking at worldwide. We're looking at 1,486,609 deaths, with 44,437,980 having recovered. Excuse me. Highest countries in the world so far, still United States at 14 million, India at about 5 million after that. and the numbers continue to rise. The vaccine conversation still is big. Where was it? How is it breathing life into the whole virus conversation right now? Are you going to be able to beat the virus? Hope in the air as the UK rolls out COVID-19 vaccine. And they've seen the first 800 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech's coronavirus vaccine will be available in the United Kingdom from next week, according to their government. And so then we saw the clamor yesterday where everybody is saying, okay, well, this is rolling out. It's an opportunity then for people to get treated and essentially get well. And then more are going to follow. With that, let's look specifically at the numbers that are being recorded right now in Kenya. And so now Kenya has recorded 84,169 cases in total. We looked at a total number of 961 new cases yesterday and a reporting of 10 new deaths. Still continuing to face the challenges, that we have been facing for the last couple of weeks, where the numbers are still rising. We saw a lower number over the last couple of days with 400, 500 and 600 there, and then now gone back up to 900 and so cases. Questions remain. Are we able to handle the opening of schools when January 4th rolls around?
But on the international scene, if you observe, the conversation is slowly changing. Now that the UK has given a thumbs up, an okay, to the Pfizer-developed vaccine for emergency use, of course, others are waiting for their respective regulators to give their verdict. China gave their verdict a long time ago, and they've been vaccinating. Now, other countries will follow suit. The US says that by February, we're being told by the departments that manage such matters, they hope to have vaccinated 100 million people.
Right.
Just like, just slightly under half of the population of that country. Well, it's not really 1.5 times a half. Now, this conversation may be shifting. But remember, a vaccine is not a cure. No. A vaccine is a preventative measure. That's what a vaccine does. But it also provides you an opportunity to be guarded against the possibility of being ravaged by this particular condition. Now, the unfortunate thing about news of this nature is that we in the media sometimes present it as though the cure has finally arrived, and it hasn't.
That seems to be what it is, right?
Yes.
That over the last couple of days, as the conversation has been had around a vaccine, it has, and we saw this, that even around the world, not just in Kenya, it's been kind of like a relaxation because, all right, even if you do get it, there's medicine then that can cure you. And
there
so
is no
that
medicine
means
that can cure you.
You can be fine and
You
walk
can
about
just
as you normally would.
You know what is odd, though? Huh? Well, odd in the sense that from a layman's thinking, from simplistic thinking, you would think this wasn't the case. But what we see happening in Kenya is replicated everywhere in the world. People not doing what they're supposed to do. There are pockets of exceptions. But these pockets of exceptions are where the government has clamped down hard and has ensured that what they've told you to do is what you do. But people left to their own devices, they will go out, they will not keep social distance, they will hug, they will shake hands, they will not wash their hands.
Sure.
Yes.
Is it in the mentality, though, that as we're looking at things now, that even as the talk, because truly, the talk of vaccine has now been in the air for the last few weeks, and it can't have escaped the minds of people that, all right, a vaccine has been found. So all of these measures that we are seeing, we're soon going to be able to toss them out the window, because then I can take something that's going to prevent me from getting this, and then I can go about as business as usual. And even in the business fraternity, I mean, we had the conversation yesterday from the folks who deal in financial services, that if there's a vaccine, they're hopeful that this has a direct effect on the economy, because if there's a vaccine, you can prevent people from getting it, and people can essentially go back to business as usual.
Yes, it can prevent, but to understand it, why don't we compare it with a virus that was with us, ravaged us, and is still with us, the HIV virus? The fact that you are on ARVs doesn't mean, for instance, that you have a cure. You do not. What you have is a pleasant position where you do not need to get sicker. The antiretrovirals simply put a halt to the advance of this particular ailment, and they reduce its activities that helps destroy your immune system. That's what it does. And over time, your own natural immune system kicks in and is able, with the help of the ARVs, to keep the virus at bay. Now, what is often measured is viral load, the activity of viruses and the concentration and the numbers. Now, what ARVs do is they reduce these numbers so that the chances of infection are lessened, not eliminated, lessened. Now, when the vaccine comes, it will mean, just like other vaccines that we've had before, that you will now be able to provide a protective measure for the people. Provide a protective measure, not cure.
That's the thing. I mean, it's kind of like security, right?
Yes.
That they can basically go and call up your reserves. So I mean, at the end of the day, it still calls on all of us to still be careful, that you can prevent yourself from getting it, but doesn't guarantee that you won't be sick.
No, it doesn't. But it gives you. Why do you think they don't say it is 100% proof?
That's why you hear things like 90%,
75,
efficacy.
95. That is why.
Yeah.
Because there's a percentage, there's a chance, and that percentage chance that it may not quite work as you plan it to do. But all said and done, it will work. Yes.
It will work to take care of you.
It will. It will.
Sure.
Why do you think it is you have, even when it comes to medication, you have all sorts of combinations when it comes to medication? Because one drug will do certain things, but it won't do everything. So you require a secondary one, which is complementary to it, to be able to do what the other ones couldn't do. Yes. And again, if I may go back to ARVs, the same. It's a combination.
It is.
Yes.
Still certain things happening in the country, even as we move forward. Schools will open in about a month or so. Still very many things that need to be done in terms of, protections when it comes to children in school. Looking at late results hampering the war against COVID-19. One of the stories that we'll be looking at when we take a look at what's happening in the news and in the headlines today. But it just does seem as if, in terms of preparedness, we're just still not up to scratch. And what's it going to take to jumpstart all of this and make sure that we're in a position where everything is needed to be done, at least to a certain level, to a certain degree, that people then are taken care of? Because again, we're looking at the entrance of 10 million children, into school. It's still on the issue of coronavirus. Before we take a break and look at the weather, be on the lookout for fake vaccines. The world is already being warned and advised now, because we have all of this talk and discussion about vaccines. There are those who are working in Crook Station already. And the International Police, Interpol, has issued a worldwide alert over a possible manufacture and sale of counterfeit COVID-19 vaccines. So they released a statement yesterday, and the Secretary General, Jürgen Stock, said that organized crime networks would exploit physical and online channels to advertise, sell, and administer fake vaccines. So everybody really needs to look out for this one, because as the talk is, everybody's jumping about. Where the original folks are working on a vaccine, there are those who are working in the shadows doing something, of course, less honest to make a quick buck. And that's quite unfortunate. So everybody's been asked to be very careful about that. We'll look more into those stories and others as we go along. Let's take a break now and look at what's happening in the skies. Maybe CT will indulge us and tell us what the skies see, or what he sees in the skies.
I must say this, Ndu. I didn't take you for being someone who has such a profound sense of humor. But, well, I now know that you have a sense of humor.
You do know.
Let me say something about the skies from what I see it. Depending on which part of the country you live, you will either have rain, you will have sunshine, or you'll have neither sunshine nor rain. Now, if that happens, then it means that you have a choice to determine where you actually fit in. Now, since we're talking about traffic, we might as well, even though, did I say traffic? Well, my mind goes to traffic.
You see?
Well, yes, there are traffic patterns that are the norm. What we're told is that outward bound vehicles are in large numbers as people leave the city of Nairobi. well in advance of the festivities that are supposed to come around the 25th of December. But today is Thursday. Tomorrow will be Friday. There will be traffic. There'll be places where there'll be congestion. There'll be one accident or two. However, you will know where again you belong, whether you are in a jam, whether there is no traffic, or whether there is an accident ahead of you. Now, those who are walking don't have those problems.
No, they don't. Okay, maybe a more detailed view of this. We'll take a break and come back and see what it looks like.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Mama, I done made it.
It's Bread Week, and the last 5 bakers are out to prove that they have what it takes to get to the semi-final.
I love it.
It's a race to the finish as they knead, knock, and proof their way through a wild technical challenge. Catch a slice of the action as the bakers deliver on a cheesy signature.
Okay, a little bit
we
more in
find
terms
out
of
who will
details.
rise
It's cloudy in
and who
Nairobi at 16. We'll see highs of 24 today. And in Nakuru, mostly clear at 14 with highs of 24. Partly cloudy conditions in Nyeri this morning at 13. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 12. It's mostly clear in Eldoret at 12 with highs of 24 today and coming down then to lows of 12. Kisumu is partly cloudy at 20. A chance of rains here later with highs of 29 and lows of 20. Partly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 15 with highs of 30 and lows of 14. The high will be 29 in Mombasa today with light rain at the moment. It's going to cool off later though and will come down to lows of 24. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi currently at 17 degrees going up to a warm high of 29 and lows of 17. It's mostly clear in Kampala at 17 with highs of 26 and lows of 17. We're in Dar es Salaam. Rain showers this morning at 26 with highs of 31 coming back down to lows of 26. Johannesburg is cloudy at 14 with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Lagos is experiencing light rain this morning. It'll go to highs of 33, a warm day today, and then coming down to lows of 25. Kinshasa is experiencing thunderstorms at the moment at 23. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 23. It's 0 in Beijing. The sun is out, but it's freezing. Highs of 3 and coming down to lows of -4. In Paris, 5 degrees and light rain this morning. Highs of 7 and lows of 5. And in London, it's light rain as well at 6 degrees, going to highs of 7 and lows of 3. And finally, in New York, clear skies at 5, going to highs of 7 and lows of 4.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, so you're tuning in to the Situation Room. If you are tuning in this morning, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. You tuned in to 94.4 in Nairobi, and you also tuned in Nakuru on 96.0, 87.9 in Mombasa, Nyeri at 90.9, Eldoret at 96.7, Kisumu at 102.5, and Malindi at 97.7. The live streams are up, so if you're watching online, you tuned in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Spice FM KE, and also on YouTube. All right. Let's see who is listening in this morning and say good morning to all of you. Laban Kapte is tuned in, as well as Pauline Minor tuned in from Kirinyaga County. Alex Mbogo want to tell CT where Kamwenja is this morning, and he says it's located next to Nyeri High School. So you weren't too far off, CT, for that one. Beide Ashley is tuned in from Machakos, and Waterman Jeffrey tuned in from Minneapolis. George Otieno is tuned in from St. Bernard's once again this morning in Rachonyo North Sub-County. And Charity Minor tuned in from Nakuru with Titus and Better. Tuned in saying good morning. Sahara and Wafula, we see you tuned in from Kisumu. Good morning, everybody. As we start things off, as we always do this morning, CT, what's today's proverb?
Yes, really simple and straightforward and easy to understand. Deal gently with the faults of others as your own, while weighing words and not counting them.
Wow. That has some depth this morning.
I thought it was a bit long.
Well, I mean, still, you were able to follow it, no?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Deal softly, deal gently.
With the faults of others as of your own, while weighing words and not counting them.
That might have a lot of relevance to some of the discussions that we are going to have this morning. Okay, so while we're on that, let's take a look at what's going on in the headlines today in the papers around the country and around the world. What do you have?
There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. Now, star, top right-hand corner, the more equal. This is what it has. Top cop must okay arrest of MP senators in bizarre order. Let me just read it out so that it isn't me paraphrasing what has been written very eloquently by others. Okay? Deputy Police IG must now okay arrest of MPs. Officers affecting arrest of senators and MPs must first seek approval from the Deputy Inspector General of Police according to new guidelines to the regional bosses. Deputy IG Edwin Mbogwa, in a notice to regional commanders, said his office must be notified before any MP is arrested. It has been directed that before making an arrest of a member of the Senate or National Assembly, consultations must be done through the Deputy Inspector General of Police Service for concurrence and further direction, reads the notice. Mbogwa addressed the notice to regional police commanders in the Rift Valley, Nairobi, Western, those regions, all right? Okay. All commanders were to acknowledge the receipt and compliance to their immediate command. This is the OCS, SCPC, SCPC, CPC, whatever these are, CPC to RPC. There are lots of C's in this, and RCTP and DIG KPS, he said. Well, really. So if you're a DIG, if you're a KPS,
Or
if
a
you're
CPC.
yes, or a SCPC, you must comply. Essentially, it does raise questions, does it not?
It does. So either there was previously wanton arrest without going to the higher ups to make sure that what you were doing was actually accepted, or they're trying to make sure that, okay, this one we're not going to. It's kind of like have a word and say, okay, no, this one we're not going to touch. It's almost like that's what you're telling folks.
No, but are you saying that before they didn't have a word? I don't think so. Do you
wouldn't
really
just go and arrest
do you
a
see a
member of
situation where
parliament?
do you see a situation where a member of parliament or a senator is arrested and the chain of command
Higher
doesn't
ups
know?
don't know what's
you
going on.
really think that will happen?
So now what they're doing is documenting it and putting it, it could have been unwritten word previously or unwritten edict that you don't do something like that without the approval of the higher ups. But now it's been documented. So for
There are all those views, yes, but consider this view, it's an escape clause. Okay? Yes, an escape clause in this sense. When something happens and you know it should, an arrest is made and the chain of command is followed, but the ramifications of that particular arrest are a little too heavy, okay? You then use that clause and say, the chain of command was not followed. How are we to know it wasn't followed? We don't know.
We don't know.
But if you're told it wasn't followed, then you assume it wasn't followed. Something happened somewhere. So the buck is passed on the can down the road to someone else who actually did what they were supposed to do in the first place. Yes. So this is so that when the higher-ups are asked, how did this happen? They know higher-ups. Say, no, wait, let me check, because I really wasn't informed. We cannot know what happens in the service, whether they were informed or not. We cannot know. So that perspective should be borne in mind, my view. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Is the DP at a crossroads? That's on the front page of the Standard today. We know that he made a statement yesterday from his Karen residence office Is it a yes or no for BBI? We're going to be looking at this in depth in the 8 o'clock hour. But just a gloss over it. Is it a yes or no? After a 5-hour meeting with MPs and governors allied to him, Ruto emerges to demand more changes to the Constitutional Amendment Bill. But Secretariat co-chair Junet Mohammed dismisses the move as time barred. So again, we're going back into that conversation of whether the train has already left the station. Can we still have these conversations? Can we still be talking about this even now? We heard the DP say yesterday that, you know what, it's possible to have referendum at the same time that you're having an election. 2022, for example, is coming. Why do we have to rush? Why don't we take some more time to see what is going on in the minds of Kenyans? And then since they're going to an election anyway, in the next 1.5 years, 1 year, 8 months, just combine the two and do them together. This was one of the suggestions that he made.
When was the last referendum that we had? It was in 2005.
Yeah.
Was it not 2 years before an election?
But in this case, what you're talking about, the matters that are pertinent to Kenyans, the matters that are coming up now are important ones, and that we can't gloss over them and behave as if they don't play any part in the national discourse. It's important to have them included, and we're talking as if there's no time. But from where he's standing, there is time. And time can be made. You don't have to rush to make a decision like this that's so critical to the existence of Kenyans nationally.
Surely the wording is interesting.
This is what he said.
But to be honest, how long has this BBI debate been taking place? Did it begin yesterday or the beginning of this year? No.
This is what he said. It is never too late for those who care for this country. We should not be simplistic in this matter. The country belongs to all of us, and there is no hurry to have a national referendum. He said this shortly after MPs allied to him read a long-winded statement in turns. After the issues he picked in the BBI Among the issues he picked in the BBI is the independence of the judiciary, the size of government, and the manner of allocating the 70 additional constituencies. He maintained that although the proponents of the initiative had considered some of his demands, there was room for more. And he said, let's do some more.
The last election was in 2017, correct? We're in 2020. And this group that the Deputy President was speaking to, a group of?
Yesterday? MPs and governors allied to...
Precisely.
He was speaking to Kenyans backed by MPs and governors who are allied to him.
Okay. Now, let me ask the simple question, all right? Right now, before we even talk of the BBI and the changes it might bring about in the referendum, we already have a devolved system that ensures several levels. The only people who are in parliament who don't get money to spend in their constituencies or counties are senators.
Yeah.
MPs get money, MCAs get money, governors get money. Now, surely, if you look at the scandals and the cases that we keep reading about in literally every county in this country, arrests being made, large numbers of people being questioned. These people aren't being questioned because the authorities in the Anti-Corruption Commission have nothing better to do with their time. It's because a red flag has been raised. The Auditor General has raised issues.
They're alleged to have done something.
Yes. It is important for Kenyans to speak their mind and to share in the freedom that we got and the rights that have been availed to us through the Constitution. But for heaven's sake, why don't you do what you're supposed to do in the first place anyway?
Get your job done.
Even if these things change and we have all these changes that are being suggested, if you can't do what you're supposed to do with what we have, what guarantee is there that all these wonderful people will be able to do the things, take the view that the changes are made? What change will it actually make in the lives of the people? I dare say none, because already what we have is a change.
So I hear you saying that these words that are being spoken would be to rile up emotions amongst people. And it's not necessarily for any kind of drastic change in the country.
We'll probably be talking about this at greater length later. But
yes, we will.
You see, my view is that views like these, anyone who decides to say certain things in public, this is a manifestation of what the rights, this is the actualization of these freedoms that our Constitution gives us. That's one. Two, when it's a politician speaking, you have to contextualize it and ask, right, what is it right now that is on the minds of most people? There's COVID, yes, but there's BBI. So if you're in a position of authority, it means you're already in the limelight. So when you speak about COVID, you get limelight. If you speak about the BBI, now, we in the press have played up this rivalry between Raila Odinga and Ruto for the longest time. And we are responsible for this hype. So now, the BBI and its progression is being aligned to Raila Odinga and President Uhuru. Or let me say, President Uhuru and Raila. That's the order, isn't it?
the order,
Protocol.
yes.
All right, fine. So now, if you speak or you seem to say things that are now measured, as opposed to the fiery opposition of it, you are still within your rights. However, since it's a politician speaking, this is taking advantage of a situation that has presented itself. Yes. And as for it benefiting the Mwananchi, let me just ask the question, how is the Mwananchi benefiting from what we have currently? Because these are phenomenal changes.
They are phenomenal
Money
changes.
in the counties, CDF has been there for some time. What are the changes that have been gotten by these very same people? Because these are the leaders, part of who get this money to help the Mwananchi. How have the Mwananchi benefit from this? So telling us about the future, because the BBI is the future. There is no guarantee that these things that are being spoken of will actually change their lives. But it doesn't mean it shouldn't be spoken of. By all means, it should.
It should be spoken of. I'm going to take a look at that later as we speak. But right now, it's 29 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're going to take a look at what's happening on the roads at the moment and see where traffic might be affecting or not affecting. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Taking a look at traffic, and we're going to come back and continue looking at what is going on and making the news this morning in the room.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay, so we're looking at Thika Road. That's
Traffic.
where we're going to start this morning. It's quite packed already, and it's also quite foggy. So if you're headed in that direction, to and fro, you're going to need to be careful because visibility is low. All right, let's take a look at the Pangani underpass, also leading in that direction. It's a mess. If you can avoid it, do. But unfortunately, it's the way that's going to lead you into the CBD if you're already on Thika Road. So this one is going to need some patience. Taking a look then at Mombasa Road, it's already starting to build up right around the SGR, and it's leading you then towards Cabanas. It's slow, it's moving at the moment. Hopefully it'll keep moving before things get crazy. All right, back on the other side of things, Kiambu Road is also piling up as we speak. We're looking at heightened levels of traffic there as well. Coming off Langata Road, getting to the T-Mall roundabout, either then going towards Bagavi Way or coming out towards Nyayo Stadium. Also moving slowly at this point, but not too bad at the moment. We'll take a look at that in a short while and see how that may have changed. Coming out of Westlands, where the fog is actually thick as well, visibility is also low, so folks are moving a lot slower. It's affecting traffic. The Red Hill bypass can be used as well at this time, as can the eastern and southern bypasses to and from Mombasa Road and Thika Road into the city. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, and 40127 via text.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, it is 26 minutes to 7 o'clock. You're tuned into The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, Ndu Oko and CT Muga. We're looking at what's going on in the headlines, and an interesting story here, CT. Interesting turn of events is what we shall call it. On page 7 of the Standard, a moth dragged into the tender's mess. Health boss accused of pushing for companies to be awarded contracts. Acting Health Director General Patrick Amoth was yesterday sucked into the investigations about questionable awarding of multi-billion shilling COVID-19 tenders by Kenya Medical Supplies Agency KEMSA. The National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee accused Dr. Amoth of using his influence at Afya House to push for select companies to benefit from the tenders worth 7.8 billion shillings. Amoth, a familiar face during the COVID-19 briefings at Afya House, was hard-pressed to explain alleged communication with suspended Kenya Medical Supplies Authority CEO John Manjari, pushing for tender awards for two companies, Wallabies Ventures Limited and Roxy Ventures Limited. Kaloleni MP Paul Katana produced a text message that said, "Hi Daktari, please consider this company as per our discussion." That was a text. Katana sought to know the relationship between Amoth and the directors of the two companies, Catherine Wanjiko and David Munene. "I know Dr. Wanjiko," Amoth said. "I worked with her for 14 years, but I never pushed her to have her company awarded any tenders. In any case, I am neither a director nor a shareholder of these companies." He said his conversations with Manjari were largely about the state of the medical equipment in the battle against the pandemic. So there are many things that were asked here yesterday, and it's interesting to note that on the donations by Jack Ma Foundation, Amoth said that his role ended with the receiving of the commodities. Where they went, who they went to whom they were awarded, not his problem. He received them, and that was it.
Well, it follows hot on the trail of news that we were discussing yesterday. This one was regards to a certain member of the esteemed house. Yes, for Nairobi, no less. Yes, a certain company, Shop and Buy. And one of the things that came up in the discussion in the assemblies was, surely this company is not really that old. So how on earth do we then trust it with so much money, and it doesn't even have a history of doing some of these things? This, in my opinion, is just a tip of the iceberg. But the question that comes to mind is this, all right? Are KEMSA a procuring entity, or are they a middle person entity who give out contracts? Do they have the capacity and the means to actually purchase directly, or must they look for other people to support the purchasing process? Or do they have both capacities? Because it seems like they have both. You see, there are other organizations like, say, MET, for instance, okay, who do something similar. Now, do they buy from other people within the country? Do they allow them, or do they do they come to an agreement with other people to purchase? Because I would hope, for instance, that if you are in that position, you have power to because of the economies of scale, you have the ability to bring down the costs of all these things that are that are required by our medical services.
You could do it.
You could, but the moment you fragment it and give it to various people, then there'll be this yo-yo of prices, there'll be no uniformity, and you will actually have no benefit in bringing down the cost of these things. Not really. So, what really is KEMSA's role supposed to be?
It's supposed to be in all of this, taking instruction, or actually part of the process then when it comes to procurement and making sure that supplies, because that's what it is, that medical facilities around the country have the necessary supplies to operate. So you would think that because you were in it's a huge position in terms of what you're able to deliver and capacity, you would believe that there was some power that you had when it came to decision making, as opposed to being told what to do.
You know, I was talking to someone who, I know they're in the know because of what they do, but as to whether the information they gave me is accurate, that I cannot state. But this is what they're telling me, that, one of the things about government procurement, one, it serves three purposes. One is what it's supposed to, the obvious one, is supposed to ensure that things are procured. But secondly, it is supposed to do favors or to usher favors in the direction of people who are friendly to people in power. So the third reason is that is the indirect way of raising money, so that come elections, when money is actually needed, these very individuals who are given this sort of contracts can actually be sought out and told, excuse me, that little matter of ours. Yes. Now, whether this is true or not, I really don't know, and I can't tell. But if it were true, then
it makes some sense.
Not only does it make sense, we can call this KEMSA 1.
Another one is
There's
coming.
KEMSA 2 on the way.
It's on the way.
Before we actually get to 2022, there'll be 2, 3 or 4 maybe. They'll get rid of the CEO, Dr. Manjara. Somebody else will come in, and the same issue will reappear.
Ooh, okay. Now, the state has allowed vice chancellors to raise undergraduate degree fees from the current 16,000 to 48,000 per year. So, university fees are set to rise threefold, not double, but triple. This is big news. You will soon pay for university education after the government backed a recommendation to increase the fees by up to 3 times. Vice chancellors want undergraduate students to pay 48,000 up from 16,000 annually. And the National Treasury, as well as the Education Ministry, backed the proposal during a meeting with MPs yesterday. The policy change requires cabinet and parliamentary approval, but it has higher prospects of passing in the House, most likely next year, as a government-backed agenda. And given the financial crises universities have plunged into. Universities owe a staggering 37.3 billion in statutory deductions. The accrued funds are for the Kenya Revenue Authority pension scheme dues, insurance premiums, SACCO contributions, NHIF and NSSF. Treasury PS Julius Muya and Higher Education PS Simon Nabukwesi acknowledged that universities are facing a financial crisis and the current fees should be reviewed. Public Universities Vice Chancellor's Committee Chair Professor George Muluvi told MPs the current fees was set in 1989 and has never been revised. And I quote, "It was estimated that the average cost for a student to study university was 120,000 shillings. The figure was comprised of 86,000 to cover tuition, while 34,000 was for students' upkeep, including stationery." This is what he told the National Assembly yesterday, chaired by Busia Women Representative Florence Mutua. So, going to university might cost you 3 times what it's currently costing you. And if this is approved, then it looks like it's probably going to be approved in the early stages of next year.
Probably reduce it, the threefold. I'm sure there's logic behind tripling it. I'm sure there is. Do you understand that logic, by the way?
No.
Apart from cost, you know the thing.
Apart from that, it's never been increased since 1989, and it's time for an increment.
Actually, cost of living has gone up. The truth of the matter is this. This is how you increase the rate of inflation, by the way, yeah? Because what you do is you raise the cost. Workers will then agitate to have more pay.
Yeah.
They will get more pay. But the goods and services that they're chasing don't really increase in correspondence. So when you have too many goods chasing, a lot of money chasing few goods, what happens is the price goes up. Theory. But the truth of the matter is that if you look at what we have in the country right now, any mention of anything going up or it costing the taxpayer more money, it will not be welcomed.
Nobody likes it.
No. It doesn't matter how reasonable the logic is. It doesn't matter how sound it is. It doesn't matter how useful it is. It will not be taken.
We will not be greeted with open arms.
No,
I mean, even as people see this, it's likely to be that, okay, already there was the question of how we're going to do this. 48,000 in a year, where are you going to get the initial amount from? So now, coming next year, it's likely that this will be accepted and we're going to see these fees raised.
Yes.
Okay. All right. City, another story from you in terms of what's going on.
Yes. Wealthy Kenyans sell luxury vehicles as COVID hits incomes. That is business daily. All right. Wealthy Kenyans, we're being told, are racing to dispose of their high-end cars in the wake of COVID-19 economic hardships. Now, all the details of how and what is happening, they're saying that there's a 34%. Okay. Now, 34% of what? There are 151 such cars, luxury cars, 4-wheel drives, fancy 2-person vehicles, massive engines, that sort of thing. Okay, 34% of the 150, meaning around 50,000 of these cars. And this evidence or the data has been taken from sites that sell such vehicles like Cheki. That's what's been quoted here. But it would make sense. What I wonder is, who do you think is going to buy them?
This is the thing that I was going to say. So they're being sold for the reason that people just are not able to maintain them anymore. They're too expensive or they need money, right?
Yes, they do.
Who's picking them up?
And remember, these are fuel guzzlers, huh?
Who's picking them up?
I'm sure there are people who are picking them up. I'm sure. Like, again, I have friends who tell me things. There's a friend who once told me that, you know something, a member of parliament, if you really want to buy a four-wheel drive car, do not a second-hand one. Don't bother with Japan. Just give it time. After an election, look for members of parliament who have not made it back.
They're going to sell their vehicles.
Or they will sell those vehicles. Just give them a year. The thing becomes rattly because of simply lack of service. They'll sell it for a song.
Okay, it's 7:15. We're going to come back and continue looking at what's going on in the news, in the papers. This is the Situation Room. It is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatleaf and True Black and the Standard Group.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Wherever you tuned in around the country, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're taking a look at what's going on in the papers this morning and what's been happening in the news.
Let me say, this is something that I think our listeners will find interesting, all right? Now, something happened in Singapore.
Okay.
And this thing that happened in Singapore, their legislative authorities and the authorities that the suitability of food products, something really fundamental, revolutionary. They approved the sale of chicken that are generated from cells grown in bioreactors.
Sorry, what?
Okay, chicken made in a lab,
Okay.
in short.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Chicken made in a
In
lab.
a lab.
There is a US-based company called Eat Just, okay? Now, this is a review that has been passed by the Singapore Food Agency and approval, okay? They say if it receives the full approval of it, all right? Remember, approval isn't you bring it and we say, okay, take. Safety.
Yeah.
Is it safe? All right? Then you ask yourself, when you talk of safety, what side effects might this actually have on people? Then there's this interesting one. It's called acceptability. Will this thing actually be accepted? Yes, it may be safe, but will people be willing to take it? Now, the statistics that are thrown at us is that of all the mammals on the planet, 60% are livestock.
Yeah.
Okay? Human beings comprise only 36%. And only 4% are in the wild. So if you know human beings will live in the wild, they only form part of this 4%. However, this isn't simply going towards poultry. It's also going towards beef. And the idea is that with time, it'll be expensive, but as the interest grows, it'll be cheaper. So you'll be able to have meat, chicken, pork, whatever it is that you eat, without necessarily killing animals. So yes, it raises eyebrows. It makes the nostrils flare.
So essentially what you're saying is that you're going to leave all the animals on the planet, as it were.
That won't happen.
And then you're not going to slaughter anything, but you're going to grow the animals that you're going to eat in a lab. How about a cancer alarm right there?
You know, there's something called myosatellite cells, all right? Now, these are the cells that actually used by the body to repair damaged muscles. Now, this is part of what is used, okay, in this research, and it is processed. All I'm saying is, let me leave the scientific complication of it. We are talking about meat produced in a lab. It's with us. Now, the authorities that are responsible for this are going through the phases of approval, but the truth of the matter is this. They are looking at approving it. It's a discussion that is taking the scientific world, should we say, by storm.
By storm.
Yes.
Okay, that is going to be very interesting to look at in terms of how that will play out and whether people will be, just like you said, whether they will be accepting of it. Eat meat that has been made in a lab.
Well, yes. So essentially what you'll be doing is collecting these cells that begin this process, which are like the building blocks. And you collect these cells, and depending on how much meat you want, well, the number of cells you collect determine how much meat you'll actually be able to produce. Now, if you can do this with meat, it means you can do this with vegetables. Now, it sounds odd, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
But break it down. These products that we speak of have cells. These products have basic building blocks within their genetic makeup.
Yeah, but see, when people talk about the flavor that is in food, for example, a vegetable that has been grown in the earth, you can feel the heartiness of the soil even when you've removed it and then you've cooked it. You taste it, right? You can taste meat that has been well grass-fed. All this sort of business. And then now somebody wants to tell you, yeah, essentially you've grown your vegetables in a petri dish. Already the mind goes off in different directions, saying that is it going to be as flavorful as it was when it grew from the earth?
Please bear this in mind. I am merely discussing this thing academically.
Okay.
Yes. My interest in it has not featured whatsoever, whether I like it or I don't like it.
Do you like it?
The idea of meat being produced in a lab, no.
No.
It doesn't sit well.
No, it doesn't. No, why?
It doesn't sit well. Lab is where you produce medicine, in my mind.
And medicine is not food.
Yes. Some medicine is actually...
Food can be medicine, but medicine is not food.
Medicine sometimes is
can be food.
It can be food.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that it's a new idea, and it flies in the face of everything that I have known.
Yeah.
And it is, should we say, a little befuddling to the mind right now.
It's going to take centuries to change the minds of people, if you ask me.
Not going to change their minds. The idea that you are going to be buying meat from a lab. Well, actually, you won't buy meat from the lab. This is me being dramatic. It'll probably end up...
I might put it in the store, but,
yes,
you know.
But already there are problems we have seen with what is fed to animals, all right? Because it very much reflects on the outcome of it. There are places where you will eat one type of meat and you're not sure what you're eating.
Yeah.
Because the taste... If you ate one as opposed to the other, the taste would be the same. Anyway, there are those who've argued that is as a result of the mass production of these things. I don't think so. But if you look at the turnaround that the world of food production has gone into, they have gone back to basics. And they've said, let's go organic. It's the way we started off, wasn't it?
It was the way you started off.
Yep. So we are back there. But we've thrown a little science into it. So get ready to start understanding how the meat you eat may actually be created in a lab.
Okay. Probe fake Cohen will, says Wairimo. This is a case that is continuing, right? A will purportedly authored by murdered Dutch tycoon Tob Cohen is a forgery, and authorities have refused to investigate the matter. This is according to Cohen's widow, Sarah Wairimo Kamotho, and she has told the High Court the same. She says execution of the will dated April 30th, 2019 is aimed to block her inheritance from the multi-million shilling estate, which comprise motor vehicles, money in banks, locally and overseas, and a house. Through lawyer Philip Murgor, Ms. Wairimu told Justice James Macau that the will was found to be a forgery by a document examiner. In the will, Ms. Wairimu was left empty-handed by her husband, who left all his wealth, both assets and cash, to his relatives. So she's saying, you know what? We need to probe this thing. Already, we were seeing problems, and it's affecting now her ability to access what she knows her good husband would have left to her.
Remember, this is an ongoing case. And the thing is, all the things that we may talk about here will land in the ears, if they haven't already, of the presiding judicial officers. And they will determine which way this particular ball will roll. And if one were in the position of Cohen's widow, most certainly you would want to put your best argument forward.
Forward, of course.
Yes.
Because you're looking at a lifeline here.
And lifeline, pun intended here, if you ask me, because your life is on the line.
Literally. It is. It is. So you can understand now where her push is coming from. Let's take a look then outside of the borders, where UN and Ethiopia have reached an aid pact for the war-hit Tigray. Food is thought to be running out for 96,000 Eritrean refugees in Tigray, and medics lack painkillers and protective gear. Ethiopia and the United Nations reached an agreement yesterday to channel desperately needed humanitarian aid to the northern region, where a month of war has killed, wounded and uprooted large numbers of people. The pact, announced by the UN officials, will allow aid workers access to government-controlled areas of Tigray, where federal troops who have been battling the Tigray People's Liberation Front and captured the regional capital. The war is believed to have killed thousands, sent 45,000 refugees into Sudan, displaced many more within Tigray, and worsened suffering in a region where 600,000 people were already dependent on food aid even before the flare-up from the 4th of November. Still a hot spot here that we are looking at.
I mean, the question you want to ask is this. Surely, the theoretical perspective is this could have been avoided. But then, humanly speaking, realistically speaking, people from this particular region have been in power for 3 decades. Okay? Humanly speaking here. Not right or wrong. Then, they are no longer in the seat of power. How does this settle? How does this sit down?
It doesn't go down well, of course.
30 years is a long time. From the time of Zenawi. Yes. It's like they just kept changing. Now, here is a pointer to the dangers of such a thing. And that is why I think the drafters of our constitution understood, and they made sure that the presidential term has a limit right across the world, because this is not a Kenyan thing, it's not an African thing, it's a human thing. The reason why you have laws is not that human beings are lovely, wonderful people who do good. No, it's because we understand that they will not. So because they will not, there's a deterrent. It's just a fact about us as human beings. Now, if someone has been in authority for that length of time, the likelihood of them being sensible and reasonable and saying, let other people also have a chance, is not likely. They will feel that it is their rightful place, a rightful position to be. After all, are they not the ones who removed the communists?
Yeah, and they've been there. And also, plus from a country that was never colonized by anybody. So the rule has been self-rule forever. But there was nothing to compare to.
My friend, if you look at the wars that have been fought within that country, even when they had a monarchy, this monarchy and that monarchy, goodness gracious me, it has been a long history of back and forth and fighting and fight among themselves. They didn't need an external war to come in.
They actually didn't need somebody else
they were doing fine
on their own in terms of conflict.
They were doing quite well on their own, if you can call that well-being. So it's not a history that is peppered with a lot of, those 30 years were probably years of profound peace. But in those 30 years, we did see other parts of that country saying, actually, we want to go on our own. Yeah, we want to give ourselves our own country and want to go about our business in the way that we see fit. Again, it is human.
It is.
It is human. It's not African. It's not Ethiopian. It is human.
It is human in terms of the way things go on. Well, look, it would be great to have some stability in this area, considering all the things that have been happening just over the last month. And then if you want to look then beyond 10 months, and then you want to look 3 years, 10 years ago, it would be great to have stability and say, okay, this has been sorted out. Because again, it's conflict that can be sorted out.
Remember that the community from which the current Prime Minister, Mr. Abe, comes from, the Oromo, they also had such issues. There was the Oromo Liberation Front, all right? They had issues, the government of that time. They had issues. And there were uprisings. Now, it didn't escalate to the point that when I say that they have a history, believe me, they do have a history.
They do have a history.
And it's a long one.
All right, we're coming to the top of the hour. We're going to come back and take a look at what's going on with traffic right now.
Spice up. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, let's see how things may have changed so far. Still on Mombasa Road, where it looks like it's going to take some time to get out of this one. It's built up all the way from the SGR, then moving towards the Cabanas. Visibility is also quite poor on Mombasa Road this morning. As you then get out way past that towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, getting on Uhuru Highway is going to be a bit of a mess today. The traffic continues going down all the way into the CBD and then connecting with Valley Road, going further then and connecting with Westlands. All right, so coming out of Westlands, going in the opposite direction, inbound into the city, the Red Hill bypass open and up for use, not much of an issue there. We're also looking at traffic that's building up, coming down from Langata Road towards Bagathi Way. So yes, again, we see pockets of traffic here and there. Nobody's stuck as of yet, so it's great. On Thika Road, however, at the Pangani Tunnel, there's a problem there today because it's moving extremely slowly. Not quite sure what the problem might be up ahead. Allsops also is causing some traffic there. The service lanes up and open for use this morning, not too much of an issue. Let's take a look at what it looks like in a short while. Thika roads at this hour, coming out of Thika, foggy, not much visibility there either. All right, let us know what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It is the only way to start your day. You're tuned into Kenya's biggest conversation. This is The Situation Room. In the room this morning, C.T. Muga and Ndruoko. And we're going to say good morning to our audience on KTN Home. Thank you for joining us. I also tuned in Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The live stream is up, so you can get in touch with us this morning. CT, as we start the hour, we're going to start with the proverb.
Indeed. Deal gently with the faults of others as you would your own, while weighing words and not counting them.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Really,
yes, going in that direction.
Universal understanding, really, rarely practiced, but understood.
Understood.
Yes.
Okay. Starting off today's conversation. Today is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. This conversation has been in our ear for some time. We have talked and talked about this. It has come to global attention. It has been in the ears and on the minds of people over time because, yes, there are people in our populations, in our communities, in our societies who are living with disabilities. And we're going to be talking about that today. December 3rd, it's a day that's celebrated. It's a day that's remembered. It's a day that's commemorated. Also, when we look at things on this side, in this neck of the woods, it would be that those who are living with disabilities are not given or are not prepared or are not living the way that they should be in terms of their rights and protections and provisions in terms of what they should or should not have. So looking at the well-being of persons living with disabilities, their participation on a national scale, on a community level, education, health-wise, do they need all that they have? Do they have rather all that they need to be able to get by in this world as we have it? Are they regarded? Are they regarded enough? Sure, I think strides have been made over the last few years. Whether we want to look at it locally in Kenya or whether we want to look at it on a global scale, strides have been made. But is it enough? Can we say that those who have to live with these disabilities have been so well integrated into society and into communities? Their needs have been met, provisions have been made for them to make sure that they can operate and live seamlessly in society and not be regarded as somebody that someone always has to do something for. And an extra budget has to be spent. But to realize that these are people who live with us, who are with us, and across board. Has it been enough? And there's always the clarion call year after year after year to say that let's not forget that more needs to be done to take them into consideration.
You know, it's actually a shift. If you consider that for the longest time, disability was not just seen as something that has happened. I'm putting it as simply as I can. No, it had spiritual attachments. The gods had been unhappy with you. You are paying for the sins, or the children are paying for the sins that some parent or some forebear had committed. And the manifestation of the many beliefs we had was in the way we treated them. You locked them up, chained them up. They were never visible, or they were given meaning. Essentially, they were treated as lesser, less desirable members of the society. And this particular day simply seeks to normalize them and say, look, fine, there is a disability, whatever it is. However, the human part of this particular individual is the same as everybody else's. You see, what we look at, for instance, is physical impairment. Someone has a physical disability, something you can see. But one of the things that has come to the fore with COVID is the mental disability that many people have. We think of mental disability as something that takes people or to institutions that care for them. But you could be mentally unwell and yet you are walking, talking, and functioning. Understanding disability is probably understanding yourself and understanding those around you. Because in one way or the other, we do have a fault and a disability. This flaw that we speak of is the most human thing that all of us have.
Right.
We all have a flaw. And yet, the yardstick we use is often a very unkind one. We don't measure and understand what it is that this individual whom you treat with a flawed judgment feels and understands everything that you do for them. And the understanding often is that these people don't even think or feel, and yet they do. And that they want to live a normal life. They want to get married. They want to have children. They want the choices that other people have. They want to participate in politics. They want to be every aspect of life that people want to get into, they want to get into. And a day like this furthers that conversation and also seeks to ensure that it is actualized, that people with disability actually have that opportunity to do precisely that.
Yes. Okay. So this morning we're having a conversation with two individuals today. We will be talking with Wanja Maina, who is an advocate for, she's not new to us. We've heard her voice over and over again in terms of what is needed for an inclusive society, an inclusive community. And she's an advocate, a young woman, an advocate for people living with disabilities to have a more inclusive stance when it comes to all of this. We'll also be talking with the Executive Director of the National Council for People Living with Disabilities, and that's Hassan Harun. So good morning to both of you. Hello? Hello? Okay, so we're talking to both of them in a short while as we continue with this conversation. So now, as we do that, hello, good morning, Wanja, and good morning, Hassan. Okay, well, we can't seem to see them right now, and so we're going to continue with that as we go along. So, CT, as we're talking about an all-inclusive an option to have a society post-COVID, we saw that when we were looking at more and more in terms of inclusion when it came to COVID, for example, and the monies that were being given, we saw that there was a problem and they were not even regarded. And we said that what needed to be done to be able to get them on board.
You know, one of the things that you notice, I think it's during this COVID period and before, slightly before, in places where there are traffic lights and people stop, you see an increase of more and more people with disabilities and on wheelchairs, especially physical disabilities, wheelchairs. There is a facility in Thika, it's called Joytown. For the longest time, it was the one facility that was known to be, it's a government facility that actually provided for the educational needs of people with disabilities. Now, other counties in the country, I do not know the numbers of such institutions in other counties. I know that there is one such in Kisumu County. I am sure there are others in other counties. But the truth is, it only points to a tip of the iceberg, what perhaps needs to be done. But something of interest that I must point out. You see, we are talking about people who don't consider themselves to have disabilities, treating unfairly, unjustly, almost and inhumanely people with disabilities. But when someone gets mistreated and disregarded for the longest time, they also get to a point where they disregard themselves. So they also they end up seeing themselves in the same light as the others do. So the things that they could do, the opportunities that could be open to them, they don't take it up. So they limit their own vision, they limit their own capacities, they limit their own way forward. So it's not a journey that is easy to begin, but it must be begun, it must be started, so that people can actually understand.
What exactly is going on?
Yes.
All right, so this morning we are joined with Young Women with Disabilities Rights Advocate, and that is Wanja Maina. And we're also joined by Hassan Harun, who is the Executive Director of the National Council for People Living with Disabilities. Good morning to both of you. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. You here?
Yes, you are. Yes,
yeah,
we can
good
hear
morning. You hear me now?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
Good morning, Wanja, and good morning to you, Hassan.
Good morning.
Good morning
Thank
to
you so much.
Yundu Oko.
And CT Muga.
Good morning, Wanja.
Good morning, Siti Muga, and good morning, Eric Latif in absentia.
In absentia. Right. Okay, so Wanja, maybe we can start off with you, and then we'll come to you, Hassan, in a bit. But look, here we are, and we're looking at this day where we celebrate. I think the first time we had to celebrate this day or to commemorate this day in the presence of what we see. A few months ago, we had the conversation about, what was lacking when it came to the inclusion of people living with disability when it came to COVID care and COVID preparedness. Now, as we celebrate this day, Wanja, what exactly are we asking for? We're saying towards disability inclusive, accessible, a sustainable post-COVID world. Is that possible from what we see now?
Thank you very much, Ndu Oko, and all the listeners of the Situation Room. An inclusive, an accessible, and a world that takes care of everyone is the ideal world for everyone to live up to their fullest potential. This COVID-19 has confirmed 100% what we already know, that people with disabilities come last in terms of budgeting and planning, that when our world is given a chance, it uses the chance to take advantage of the most vulnerable. Even as we are talking about a post-COVID world because of the COVID pandemic, as a leader of young women with disabilities, the other pandemic that was the twin to this pandemic is the pandemic of sexual and gender-based violence among or against these young men and women. So then, is an ideal, accessible, and inclusive world possible? I believe it's possible. Are we there yet? A big no. Is there something we can do? Yes. The government, people with disabilities, everybody showing a bit of concern. As we had the discussion, really, at the time it was so confusing. For everybody, where are we not? COVID is still here with us. In fact, we are in the second wave. We should wake up and smell the coffee.
And looking at where you are, Hassan, I mean, directing a council that has been set up for people living with disabilities, where are we in terms of having, everybody included, in terms of making sure that it is sustainable? We've seen the problems over and over again. COVID has brought that out even more. Is it possible to have a society that is so inclusive that we don't have to, that these problems don't have to jut out at us?
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you so much for giving us opportunity to share. First, let me thank both of you for really giving an interesting background onto what disability is all about. And maybe if I will add a little bit before I respond to what you've asked, disability is not about impairment of people. It's about barriers across, these people with different impairments to freely and productively participate in our society. Barriers emanating from physical environment for those who have physical disability, but the most important of all is attitudinal barriers, the attitude of the society toward those with different disabilities. And as a country, especially in Africa, we've done quite a lot, let me say, in terms of policy and laws to build an inclusive society. We have, the most progressive constitution 2010, which spells out, the right of persons with disability, whether it's political right, social right, all forms of right. We have Persons with Disabilities Act 2003, which created National Council for Persons with Disability that's mandated, with all issues of disability in this country. And then as a country, we have also ratified and domesticated Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And quite recently, last year, we have come up with a National Disability Policy. Right. So we are not shortages of policies and laws that can build an inclusive, sustainable, society or the country. Of course, as a developing country, we might have a little bit of challenges here and there in terms of implementation, in terms of funding, critical key issues. And this year, coming to the day, and when we are celebrating this day, against the backdrop of pandemic, it's a fact we can see that disabled persons are much more vulnerable, and the situation requires much more attention than the general population. You can imagine someone who is a wheelchair user or someone who can be supported every day. What could be a social distance for this person? Right. Someone who is blind and always rely on a guide. Different forms of disability requires different, attention. Whether it is at home, whether it is at the hospital care, wherever it is. So we have tried. Those who are deaf, are they accessing communications? And such kind of a thing. So I think we've met the committees, to really capture the needs of all disabilities and how they can be incorporated. I'm happy my younger sister Wanja is among the strong advocates of how they can, issue of disability can be involved in campaigns against COVID prevention and even curative. And she can confirm to you here that at least government have had them, and some of the concerns they've raised have been really adopted, including having sign language interpreter during the press briefings, and such kind of a thing. And today, actually, we are celebrating or creating awareness on this day at Tika School for the Blind, and our CS, Honorable Chilugui, will be the chief guest there, where we will be distributing countrywide, equipment, mask, all the things that is required, for preventive measure, all the 47 counties around the country. So it is now, as I said earlier, we are no shortages of law, and we have also political goodwill. But of course, we are not yet there, but we are on the path toward there. Thank you so much.
Hassan, I'd like to ask you this question, and thank you for laying it out so clearly. In terms of educating people or ensuring that there are educational institutions that specifically cater for the needs of people with disabilities. How many of them do we have in the country?
It's something I'll confirm. I'm only 3 days old in the office.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that I'm just 3 days in the office, let me say. It is something that I'll confirm to you, but they are not so much, but most counties, they do have an institution, especially deaf institutions, those with physical, institution, but some counties don't have. And in line with inclusive and sustainable development, what government is also agreeing with the world, agendas on SDGs, is to have an inclusive education. The importance of inclusive education is to fight stigma and labeling. You see, I know of a school in Garissa, it is meant for school for psychosocial form of disability. And the local communities call the school of fools, and they call the teacher of a school of fools. And such a thing has a tall order on children when they're growing up. But when we foster inclusive education and we incorporate, a unit of those who have severe form of disability, like psychosocial, those who are to be trained on life skills in the mainstream school, children will grow up together appreciating the diversity. So one of the key things that we can really push forward is how we can, you remember the government have put in sign language as one of the national languages. We are in the process of implementing how it is. The current curriculum, has put, all those things in place, the way we can, teach all children regardless of whatever impairment they have when they were together. So those are some of the approaches the government are coming up, in building an inclusive society.
Wanja, there were a lot of challenges when COVID made its entrance into Kenya, right? And this was very clear, even in this area, that, it seemed as if there were blanket provisions that were made without taking those living with disabilities into consideration. Now, when we are looking forward and saying we want to have an all-inclusive society, we want to have an all-inclusive community, do you see that there is a big gap from where we are currently to where we should be? And if there is, what really needs to be done? Hassan has told us, for example, that we're not lacking laws, we're not lacking documentation. All of those things are there. But in terms of the actual implementation and getting things done, are we really a far cry from the reality?
Oh, we are a far cry. You've called it a gap. I think we can just call it a pothole or a big escarpment. I don't know what to call it, but there's a very big disconnect between what the county and the national government purports to have done to exactly what is on the ground. And I'll give you a perfect example of social protection. When the COVID came, in fact, I don't know if there's any other country in the world that was collecting the number of its vulnerable people in the midst of a pandemic. Because this is a department that has been there for years and years. So social protection comes. Of course, they are looking for information of the disabled and the vulnerable people. Tell you what, when you go to the communities, like as I am speaking with you, Ndu and Sitimuga, I am in Nyeri. We are doing COVID-19 sensitization. And I can assure you that even as you're passing the health information, people are asking for money for food. People are asking for resources for social protection. So my question is, one, the government, the duty bearers, the UN agencies, the NGO people should stop telling us what they care about. They should budget for it, because when you budget for something, you show that you care for it. And someone once said that never ever say what you care about. Show us your budget line. If it appears, then you care for it. If the social protection is a challenge, that has been it's an open secret. It's not even a secret. Why then can they get it right? Because for me, 2,000 shilling is very little money. But for the people who are in dire need, the people in rural areas, 2,000 is a saving grace. The other big issue has been the assumption that people with disabilities have understood this COVID information. And I can assure you that when you go to the community, you realize that even assumptions that people are accessing radios and TVs and this information is not actually very factual. So my first contribution, and what we can just say, is that sometimes we measure a society by how it treats its vulnerable people. It's not even fair to see people saying, I just wish I got the 2,000 shillings. And for those of us who have a little bit of economic ability, 2,000 we would call it little. But to someone else, that's a whole meal for a whole month.
Sure.
The other big issue that is another pandemic that I don't know who will talk about it, but it's because we are talking about the 16 days of activism. I can tell you that the cases of violations, the defilement, sexual harassment they are rocketing. In fact, it's a big shame. The police, I saw a research that said that there's a 23% increase in people who have had or witnessed GBV happening around people. Where I am in Nyeri, we had a discussion and we learned that some of the survivors, stroke victims, are people with disabilities. So then the question will be, at what point then will we say that we are progressing as a country, even in the midst of a pandemic where people are worrying about their own lives and trying to stay alive? There are people who are being violated. And one case is too many, you agree with me. So my first recommendation and my first call to government is that we should get out of our high horses where we usually say, we are doing so much for these people. And even I wish C.F. Chelgui could have done that ceremony that he's doing in Thika, somewhere in the villages Nauko, so that he can hear the first-hand voices of these people. Because maybe C.F. Chelgui could be well-meaning, but the information he's getting is that his people are happy. Are the people happy? How can we be happy if you're struggling to get something to eat? And number two is that poverty is real. I've come to realize that poverty is real. I saw one politician saying that someone had that people are not eating, and he asked them, so you forgot to cook. But there are people without food.
Without food.
Or even maybe saying, we are not happy because we can't afford bread, and they will say, eat cake.
And eat cake.
So our issue...
Definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of issues to be looked at. And, our time is short and running out. But, even as we commemorate this day, I want to thank both of you for having this conversation with us this morning, Hassan and Wanja. And as we continue to look towards an inclusive society, really hoping that a lot of these things taken into consideration and we don't stop having the conversation. We're going to take a break for our viewers on KTN Home and say thank you to both of you this morning. And the conversation continues.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye-bye, and keep up with the good work you're doing.
Thank you very much, sir.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Instagram.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right. This morning, and in Nairobi we're looking at partly cloudy conditions through most of the morning, a sprinkle in some parts, highs of 24 and lows of 15. 19 and mostly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 19, going to highs of 23 and lows of 12. Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 19 with highs of 24 and lows of 11. And we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 19, highs of 29. It's also mostly cloudy in Kakamega with highs of 30 and lows of 14 today, currently at 19. Light rain in Mombasa at 25 with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Malindi is mostly cloudy at 19 with highs of 29 and lows of 17. And we're looking at sunny conditions in Kampala at 18, going to highs of 26. And Dar es Salaam, the rain continues this morning at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Whereby in Joburg, it's cloudy at 14. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. Lagos, light rains, 26 and highs of 33 and lows of 25. We're looking at Kinshasa thunderstorms this morning at 24. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so Mr.
Traffic.
This is absolutely jam-packed this morning. The fourth lane just created by a couple of folks this morning. So where it should be 3 lanes or 2 lanes, it's actually 4 now. So the Eastern Bypass, if you're headed in and out of that area today, just know that this is what it is. The crazies are out today and it's not moving. Use outer ring, however, because you would be out in no time. If you can use the outer ring road, you should be all right. Don't get on the bypass, and that's the eastern if you don't have to this morning. The southern bypass, however, that you can use without too much of an issue today. If you're trying to then join with Langata Road, join with Ngong Road, you should be fine using this getting into the CBD. You get to Timor roundabout, there's a bit of a snag, but you should be all right heading towards Bagavi Way or then towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Mombasa Road, yes, we know it's slow all the way from the SGR and even further up to the Weybridge at Malolongo. It's moving very slowly this morning, but it's moving all the same, so you're not at a standstill, and for that, we give thanks. You get stuck somewhere, let us know. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter or talk to us via text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-bellied people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know.
Yeah.
She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you
And
used to do?
women are guilty about that. No,
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
From around the country, you are tuned to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM. If you're tuned in from Nairobi on 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret on 96.7, Nyeri on 90.9, Kisumu on 102.5, and Malindi on 97.7. You're in the Situation Room this morning with Siti Muga and myself, Nduoko, and we are having conversations that affect society, definitely affect or impact the way in which we live in this country. Today is the International Day of Persons Living with Disabilities, CT, and we started off the conversation looking at, albeit quickly, what is really happening and what is the state of affairs when it comes to protections, when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to really looking at how things are running. We're also on KTN Home this morning. The live stream is up on Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And so we continue with this conversation. Soon we're going to be having a conversation then with the law. And when it comes to putting some of these protections in place from the legislative arm of things. But City, even as we look and have this conversation, anybody can say whatever they want to say, and we can talk about the different laws. I mean, we don't want for provision when it comes to laws and policies that have been written up and put in place. But in terms of their actual implementation, if we're saying absolutely have an inclusive society when it comes to bringing in people who may not have everything that they need, that would not be normal, living with disability. Apart from just having a law, in terms of its implementation, what's the bottleneck? What's the stop that doesn't allow these things to actually play out? And it's not a yesterday conversation. This has been decades.
It isn't. But also, let me go back to my favorite point on such subjects, the education system. You see, all these things that matter to us must start mattering to us when we are impressionable, we are easy to influence, and that means when people are young. That's when you introduce them to these concepts and ensure that they actually understand them. So they grow up understanding it. So because in schools which are not specific for people with disabilities, they will come across students who have disabilities. Understanding, well, the range that we do understand of disability, so that even as they mix and mingle with people who have disabilities, they understand how it is. They ought to regard this, and it doesn't become something unusual or bizarre. It becomes just a condition that someone has. In the same way as somebody has brown eyes as opposed to green eyes, as opposed to whatever.
It's normal.
An oval head as opposed to a round head, as opposed to a square head with such a head. Normal. It's just a variety. Now, also, you get to understand how to handle and manage people who have disabilities. Understanding their perspective from the disability that they have. You see, when children are in school, a lot of the views that society have or hold are actually played out. Like you'll find, for instance, who are the children that other children make fun of in school?
Yeah.
And where do these children get the idea that this is the sort of person you should make fun of? It's from their parents.
Oh, that this person is abnormal.
Yes, it's the community that they come from. For instance, one of the things that you will find in many young people is they stammer. You'll be made fun of, and it's not as though it will improve your condition. All I'm saying is we need to understand that when someone is not like you, when someone is different, it doesn't mean that there's something bad or something negative about it. It's just that they are not like you, they are unusual.
Yes, yeah, they are. I mean, they are, and that just means that they're not like you.
They're different.
They're different. It doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to operate just as you would.
It's a broad range.
So, I mean,
but
just,
you have to
to understand.
Yes,
it. So
you do.
It has a lot to do with the mental. So even if you're having it has a lot to do with your understanding of this. So even if we're looking at change and inclusivity, then any kind of behavioral change has to be for everybody else to understand that, look, we're bringing in and we're including people who are just like you. It's just that there's one thing that they're not able to do in a capacity such as yours. We're bringing in this morning Westlands MP Timothy Wanyonyi, who is not a stranger to a lot of these conversations that we've had in the past when it comes to inclusivity of people living with disabilities in Kenya, around the world, and things that should or should not be done. Timothy Wanyonyi, good morning and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So on this day, we are commemorating, celebrating, and we're saying that, again, a memory be spared or a thought be spared for the fight and the work that is being done for inclusivity for people living with disabilities around the world. But as we're having this conversation specifically in Kenya, strides have been made, improvements have happened. However, there seems to be a very, very long way when it comes to what needs to be done to almost get people to forget, and I'm going to say this carefully, to forget that there are people living with disability in the country and treat them as every other Kenyan. There's a huge gap, Mheshimiwa, and why is that, and why have we not been able to close that gap?
I think, first of all, we have to change the mindset of people, because we can legislate, we can bring up all manner of laws, beautiful laws, and we have had this Persons with Disabilities Act, which was enacted in the year 2003, which is almost 17 years down the line. We have the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, which was passed in the year 2006, and Kenya signed and ratified, and all these things are contained there. But you see, for us to move forward, we must change how we look at people with disability. The moment you see a person with disability, what do you think? What do you see? For example, if I'm coming to you and with my wheelchair, what will you see first? Will you see the wheelchair first, or will you see me first?
Sure.
I will definitely see the wheelchair first. Yes.
Yes, that's what we do. because the person comes first before the wheelchair, isn't it?
Right.
If the moment you start seeing me differently, because, for example, sometimes after my accident, when I used to go home, when I reached there, my mother used to see me and she just cries. But these days, when I go, she doesn't cry. She just sees me as her son and the normal person. So with my attitude, I changed her mind.
Sure.
And now she sees me that I'm just able to do anything like anybody else is. So we need just to unlock the minds of people. The attitude, in fact, attitude is what makes disability, not disability itself. Because the moment people have this kind of attitude that a disabled person is a person, for example, they use a Swahili word as asiyejiweza. It means I'm not able to do anything.
Sure.
So those are the things that we need just to fight. And once we have changed the mindset, then the rest will just fall in place.
The rest will fall in place. You gave an example of how you were able to change a mindset of somebody who was within your family. And here you are, a legislator in a country. Yes, many see you and they see you with your wheelchair first, as opposed to seeing you. But I mean, look at the heights that you have been able to scale. Many would say that maybe conditions were different and able to get to the place where you were. But I mean, it is clear that somebody who has a disability, if we're going to call it that, can actually get to the place whereby they will be accepted in society, but it takes time. What is it that we can do? Because, forever, the fingers keep pointing at those who legislate. The fingers keep pointing at those who govern. But can you really put in legislation that is essentially going to change the way people think? Because then if you change the way people think, you then change the way people act, and that will spur them on into other things. Can legislation come about that will affect the way people think, that then will inevitably bring about change in this sector that we are looking for?
If you look at the Persons with Disabilities Act, there even a section that deals with criminalizing anybody who, for example, having a person with disability in their family, and you conceal that person. You don't want him to be known. You don't want the world to know that you have a person with disability. These are some of the things that are there, but they are still happening. All what we need to do is, I think we must do serious civic education, that people with disability have rights, and their rights are human rights. They are no different from any other person. And for us to move, because we cannot legislate on everything until we change the way the society deals with certain issues. Some cultural, behavior, which sometimes in some cultures, a person with disability is treated like just a thing. You don't exist. They can even sometimes when something happens, they can leave you somewhere there to die. So we just need to inculcate in people to understand that a child with disability is just a child. He must be taken to school. He must be given everything else that the other children are being given. So
from a legislative point of view then, because we see that some things essentially need to be forced for that mental change to take place. So if there are things put in place, for example, to quote-unquote force that these children be taken to school. So what does that mean? That within schools provide sectors or departments where people who have disabilities can go to school without fear or favor. To say that, for example, when there's COVID-19 in the country and they need a boost, make sure that it is given to them. When we need to say that all buildings in the country, for example, need to have ramps, need to have a quota, or all companies need to have a quota where people with disability are hired, regardless of what kind of disability they have, so long as they're able to function. Don't you see this as a way in which legislation then would come about to essentially force it? Because then if you see people who are sitting in these positions in corporate, for example, sitting in these positions in government, for example, still being able to get a job done, people from the outside looking in will see, all right, the work is being done. It's not necessarily because you don't know if it's a full able-bodied person there, whether it's somebody who's living with a disability, the job is being done. if you come to see later that it's actually someone with a disability sitting in that position, then you realize it begins to change your mental thinking that it doesn't matter who is there, so long as they're able to do the job, it can get. So I see it as a way in which, if legislation is in place, you're forcing things like this to happen by making sure you have created these positions in the schooling system, in the work system, in the corporate sector. People's minds will change, because if we sit and wait and say, have conversations with people living with disabilities and your mind will change, I see that taking a very long time. But if government is fully vested in making sure that some of these changes take place, I see that as contributing to the mind change set that we're essentially looking for.
Can I tell you that all these things you are mentioning are already there in the legislation? We just need to implement that act, because even in the act, when it was enacted 2003, it was given like 5 years for all building owners to make adjustments and make them accessible to people with disability. Do you know, up to today, no such buildings, very many buildings don't have those facilities. The media houses, like nowadays, I've seen they have implemented that. That when they're reading the news, we need to have somebody with sign language who is interpreting for those who cannot hear.
Sure.
Which now it has been implemented. If you go to the bank, if you go to the supermarket, a person who is deaf and they cannot communicate, how will the people there serve it? Those are some of the things that are in the act. They are there. So what we need to do is just, I think people who are in place, we have, as we legislate, but those who implement the laws are different. The Persons with Disabilities Act was enacted at the same time with the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. And the Kenya National Human Commission was implemented very quickly. The Persons with Disabilities, it took 10 years for it to start being implemented. Even giving the money to the National Council, which is supposed to be the one now, the focal point to implement the act, it is a tall order. They come and then everything is taken away. They're just given money for administration. So they cannot even devolve. They cannot even go out there and start advocating or educating people on how to do it. But to cut the long story short, is that maybe let me give you an example. I hope it's not against the policy of your media.
Well, let's hear it.
It is an example that you're giving.
Yes. I'm giving an example of Safaricom. When, I started an organization and we were dealing with issues of advocacy, issues of creating awareness and all that. And we wanted people with disability to be employed. So we approached Safaricom and we talked to them. Then Michael Joseph was the CEO. And I asked him if they can implement. He said, first of all, tell us what we need to do at our workplace before we bring them on board. So we gave him an example. We said, just take a few, maybe 2, 3. Once they're at our workplace, you'll know what to adjust, what the needs they need. And the guy took it very positively. And now when you go to Safaricom, they have got a whole department of customer care, which with people with disability. And with them being at the workplace, they knew what need to be adjusted, the washroom, the level of the desk, and the size of the door, and all that, creating ramps, so that the movement is easy. So if we have people who are ready to listen and implement, it becomes very easy.
As a legislator, Mheshimiwa, let me just ask, how many schools, government schools for people with special needs, do we have in the country?
I can't really tell how many, but there are very few.
Yes, there are 6 to be precise, actually. There's the reason why I'm asking this question from the perspective of a legislator, which is who you are. Now, legislators, members of parliament, MPs have a constituency development fund that is supposed to help them look after the needs and the interests of their constituents, okay?
Yeah, yes.
Is there a special push to have even this particular fund cater for the needs of people with special needs? Is there a budgetary item that looks into the needs of these people with special needs within the CDF?
Within the CDF, we cater for education. So if it's about education, it falls under the CDF. But the other thing is that what was being encouraged, even in the law and even in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, is to integrate children with disability in the normal learning system, unless the child has got very severe disability that cannot go in the normal school. We just make adjustment in the normal school and allow children to integrate so that they learn together and know and understand each other, so that these other children can know the limits, the limitations that the other child has, and then they can learn how to integrate with him and play with him and do all things with him, other than just seeing him at a far distance or in a separate institution. So this is the kind of policy. And I've gone to the US and I went specifically to see how they do it in their schools. And I found that children with various forms of disability are learning together with children who don't have any disability. And you find the teacher sitting there and sometimes they're using sounds, they're using different methodology of teaching. And it is a very good system that brings these children together to learn and understand that a child with disability and a child without disability are just children, so that they can go out there. Even when they go to play, you see these children even carrying this other person to take her to the field so that they can play together.
Why do you think they've been able to do this, Mushua? Why have they been able to do this? To have a system that is so well integrated with two different cadres of children being taught in the same space. Why? Yeah. What provisions have they made that has enabled them to do this?
They have met, for example, if you are building a building and instead of putting a staircase, you put a ramp. And this ramp can be used by anybody. You who is walking, a person with a wheelchair and all that. And when you go to the classroom, when you go to the washroom, they have made all adjustments, because those things can be used by children with disability, can be used by children without disability, and they are just in place there. And it doesn't cost anything extra. I can give you an example. I've done some schools where we had to go and make adjustments. And right now, when I'm constructing any classroom, I tell my contractors, don't put staircase, put ramps, so that children with disability, when they come, they can access. They can go to classroom, they can sit like any other child and learn, and all that. So we just need to improve on our system. And these things, as we speak now, we are going to repeal the Persons with Disabilities Act, and we are coming up with a new act, which now will be aligned to the Constitution and also to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, so that it captures all these things we are talking about, so that at the time when people will be implementing, they'll have no excuse of saying that it's not captured in the law. For example, there is in the law, there is a provision that people with disability are supposed to retire at the age of 65. But you go to many of these agencies, government agencies, in their computer it just reads a person retires at 60. So it reaches 60, the guy is given a letter, and then they say. So until we had to amend the law and amend various legislations to be able to keep that, because that was given as a government policy. It was not captured in the law. So we had to amend several legislation so that thing is now captured, and then we send it out to those employees. And some of them were given, like, for example, the AG, who is the government, legal person. And then they're retiring somebody at that age, and then that thing is, they told us, this thing is not in the law. Until you put it in the law, then we can work it on, we can bring it up like that. So we put it in the law.
It looks like you have your work cut out for you. There's something you said that I found disturbing, and it's actually been doing the rounds in my mind. Monies budgeted, allocated, then taken away. How do you win this fight? Because if you have a body that is supposed to look after the interests of people with disabilities, to advocate, and yet they do not have the funding, they will certainly not be able to do their work. How do you unlock this?
We are, now in Parliament, we have a caucus of persons with members with disabilities, of which I'm the chairman. And we have told this institution when they are coming, because now the budget is met at Parliament.
Yes.
When they are bringing their estimates, first of all, they come and invite us in a small meeting, a brief meeting. We go and sit with them and see what is it they are bringing. And then we shall go to this committee that deals with the budget, and we go and lobby, because these things is just about lobby. We lobby and tell them why we need these people to be given more money. And this actually has worked, because from being given 200 million, a budget for 200 million per year, now we are giving them over 2 billion shillings, which can now enable them even to devolve their functions and take them to the counties, because that's where we want to go. That they must go to the people, not people coming to them, to make sure that they are delivering services, and are also making sure that people with disability understand their rights. And that one, we must do it without, it should not be something that like you are doing somebody a favor. It's a right. It's their right to know that they're supposed to do ABCD. We are supposed to give them wheelchairs free of charge. We are supposed to give them all devices that they're supposed to use. People with the blind, to give them those braille books and all that, so that they can be able to access some of the information that is either online or something like that. Yesterday, I was participating in something that the banks are doing. They are trying to now improve their workplace and also bring people with disability to enjoy the banking product.
halls. Right, sure.
Yes, so they go to bank, they can access the ATMs, they can access whatever. So that they are trying to, they have done a pilot project, but now with yesterday when we went through, we had to do some adjustment and tell them do this, do that, so that when people are showing the intent to do something, then you see now we are going the right direction.
Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, we want to thank you for being in the Situation Room with us this morning. Definitely a lot of work to be done, and we're going to follow up with you in terms of how all of this plays out in the future. Definitely important conversations to have. Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa.
Asante sana. Enjoy your day.
Asante.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break now on KTN Home. We're going to come back and continue with these conversations. Keep it here in the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up.
Right, as I listen to Mheshimiwa talk about the work that needs to be done here, you would think that because it's not shouted from the rooftops that stuff is not going on. Going to the extent of repealing an act because the implementation has not taken place, and couching this reason in the fact that the law does not provide for us to do certain things. Okay, let's remove it, bring in a new bill that will then insist for this implementation to take place that has been actually entrenched in law.
The bill is important. It's necessary so that you have a structure that can be a constant reference point. But remember, something that many male-centered communities have always had, the pecking order of what's important. Women and children were lumped together as not that important. Yes. Then people with disability at the end of that particular ladder completely. Now, to understand this, look at how our legislators have treated the two-third gender rule.
Not important.
Yes, exactly. It's like women are treated in the same way, in the same disregarding way that many of our people treat people with disabilities. Not that important. As though they are not. So you consider them, yes, whatever we've done, no matter how little, that should be enough for them. Meaning, you have made the decision that is adequate for them. And yet, all these people we refer to as people with disabilities are citizens just like you. They have same institutions like you, families just like you. They have the same needs, just like, absolutely no difference. The only difference is that they may have a visual impairment, they may have a physical impairment, It may be something in their mind that doesn't, that provides a diversity that you're not accustomed to. That's really where it lies. But I have to go back. If you were to understand this thing well, I like the integration concept that the Mheshimiwa mentioned. Even as you integrate, let it be part of the learning process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And don't stop with primary. Don't stop with kindergarten. Take it to secondary school. Take it to universities. There are things you want to make a compulsory course. Let it be a unit, but let it be taught. Let it be something that is in your face so you're aware of it and you can't pretend it doesn't exist.
Right. So because if it's in your face, then it becomes normal.
Yes.
And then you're not going to be looking at people and asking yourself, what can you actually expect from them? It becomes a normal way of doing things. That's why he spoke about the countries where they visited. And you can have two children, one living with disabilities and one without, working in the same space. And it's not going to be a shocker. It's not going to be an eyebrow raiser because it has been an accepted way of doing things.
They've taken that journey and that's where they've ended up.
We're going to top of the hour now. We're going to come back and continue with Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Okay, so what I'm looking at on the road
Traffic.
In the middle of the CBD is this problem here because we have some roads that have potholes and that's causing the traffic to build up from Ronald Ngala to Fangano Street. Folks are complaining and that is holding up traffic as you try to get out then towards railways. Okay, coming off Mombasa Road, it's still a bit slow, but it should be all right. It's not terrible as it has been in the past. Thika Road, finally folks are off Thika Road after being there for some time. The service lanes are your friends once again this morning. You can use those to avoid the traffic that is stagnant on the highway. All right, there's been an accident at the Donholm overpass this morning. Unfortunately, someone has lost their lives. Please be careful as you approach that area if you're going in that direction. Industrial area seems to have a bit of a clog up right around Lunga Lunga, but it's opening up as we speak. All right, coming off Langata Road and headed towards Bagathi Way, that is also taking a toll on traffic. It's slowing down. Uhuru Highway then from Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way through to Westlands today, moving very, very slowly. We're going to keep an eye on this and see how that may change. Remember, the Eastern Bypass this morning is a no-go zone. You don't have to, don't go there. Speak to us about where you might be stuck or where you'll find an alternative. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not...
It is the only way to start your day. You're tuned in to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is The Situation Room. If you're tuned in, wherever you're tuned in from across the country, Nairobi on 94.4, looking into Eldoret on 96.7 and Malindi on 97.7. The live stream also is up on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, Spice FM KE. And also hello again to our audience on KTN Home. Those guys who are online, we give you a shout out this morning and you join the conversation with us. And thank you for keeping those comments coming in terms of what has been happening in our previous conversation with and concerning the people living with disabilities and the provisions and protections that are continually being put in place to make sure that we have an inclusive society. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit in terms of this conversation. You're in the room this morning with C.T. Muga and myself, Ndu Oko. And we're going to jump.
Before we shift gears,
you need to give us today's proverb.
Yes, I do. And I also need to mention something. You see, today's proverb is fairly simple and straightforward. Deal gently with the fault of others as you would your own, while weighing words and not counting them. But the thing that I want to cap off our previous conversation with is a question I'd like to present and pose. Now, this is directly to KRA and the government. Why is it that we still charge taxes on the following? Wheelchairs, donated by the way, coming to the country, crutches, walkers, white canes, and simple mobility devices. Now,
taxes.
Yes. PEPFAR used to bring these things and donate them. Now, because we charge taxes to these, and our neighbors do not, and when I refer to our neighbors, I'm talking about Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, then all these containers arrive in Mombasa and they go directly to these countries. So they benefit from these donations. Our people don't because we charge taxes. Now, this is something I'd like Kerry to respond to.
It would be interesting to hear what that response would be.
Yeah,
especially on something that has been donated.
Yes.
Right?
And something which we know. There may be a law that doesn't discriminate against these things, but if indeed this is true, and I believe it is, then maybe the law needs to be looked into. It's donated. We know what purpose it is for. A wheelchair is not something you put on a Sunday. A walking stick is not something you the word is swag, that you have around about you for purposes of swag. No. It's a device that is absolutely necessary. That's why you have it.
Yeah.
Why? All right. Over to you.
Interesting to do, and definitely important to have in terms of that conversation. Speaking of conversations that took place yesterday, again, there was a call to have time given to this BBI process. The Deputy President, for the first time in a while, came out and spoke, flanked, of course, by those who are loyal to him. There were certain things he said which was asking the country and those in positions of power of this process to take into consideration. But one of the overarching messages that he did give here was time. He said, we have time. Why are we in a rush? He says there should be no campaign. And there should be these new demands. It shouldn't be something that should be argued back and forth. What you're actually looking for is time. Give Kenyans an opportunity to air their views. It was absolutely important from where he was coming from to say Kenyans still have more to say. Don't shut down the avenues for conversation. Don't shut down the options for conversation. Allow Kenyans to come out and say what it is that they are interested in saying. And I'm going to give that quote again that he said. He said, it is never too late for those who care for this country. We should not be simplistic in this matter. The country belongs to us all. There is no hurry to have a national referendum. He then went on to say that it would be absolutely possible to have a referendum at the same time that you are having elections. Lump the two together, hear what it is Kenyans wanted to say about this initiative to essentially amend the constitution, and then let them also vote in a new government as they saw it. He condemned and praised the BBI at the same time. He talked about provisions and demands. He said, yes, some of the things that they had asked for, they had been considered, but he said, you know what, some of the other things, let's bring them into play as well. But again, the overriding message that he was giving here is we shouldn't be in a hurry. We should allow time for some of these things to play out. And the time that he's looking for is the discourse and the understanding of many Kenyans for what they're essentially getting into when they sign off on this BBI, when they sign off then on the referendum bill, which basically says you can go ahead, yes or no, to accept these conditions and change. Many had said things before him, but this was the thing that he came out and said, CT, and he said, look, why are we in a hurry? There's still time. Genuine in terms of how he was coming out to say this, that, you know, Kenyans need to be considered in their views, or again, looking at what we said, people, once again, looking for political expediency and now setting themselves as the one that should be listened to.
Well, the thing is, we are talking about the deputy president here, okay? Number 2 in the pecking order of the leadership in this country. Now, he is a citizen like every other citizen in this country. And the rights that are enshrined in our constitution apply to him just like they apply to everybody else. And because of that position he has the ability to ask people to come to him. He has the ability to summon people. He has the ability to have, remember, against the backdrop of this discussion of him being the DP, he is a politician. And politics by its very nature is a competitive sport. Now, competition is a question of how many people can support you. This one you don't have to run physically. You simply need to garner the numbers. Now, numbers are garnered by, among other things, doing what he's doing right now. Ensuring that you present yourself on the right side of something that matters to people. The issues of BBI have taken center stage in the discussion of what's happening in this country right now. The Tanga Kilaweke discussion, which for a long time occupied our minds, no longer occupies our minds.
No.
COVID takes a section of our minds, but the BBI, politicians have ensured, and we in the media have ensured, that it is a focal point for Kenyans. So it is a matter that is discussed, whether you like it or not. Everything else now revolves around the BBI. Is it a panacea? Is it a cure-all? Is it whatever you think? It will be brought into the perspective of the BBI. So, if the Deputy President wants to make his contribution to the discussion, that I believe is appropriate. But again, I have to remember and remind myself that the Deputy President is a politician. And he's a politician who, in the days gone by, has shown his mettle. We have seen what he's capable of doing. We have seen more to the point what he's capable of saying. And he's a man who clearly understands the effect and the impact of words. He has a cohort of people within his party, Jubilee, who have ideas that he champions, and for the longest time was seen to have been in opposition to the president, who is the leader of the Jubilee Party.
Sure.
So, all this against the backdrop of 2022, when we're supposed to have our general election, which includes the election of our president. So, I could argue we're in campaign mode. And one perspective, if we move away from the rights of the individual, is we are in campaign mode, and the BBI is an interesting campaign tool.
It's a tool. And this is what I keep saying. It's a tool that it would seem to be used by both sides, those who are for it and those who are against it. But unfortunately, the ones who suffer at the end of the day, whether it is suffer for lack of understanding or suffer for lack of inclusion in the entire process, again, is the common Kenyan. A common man who says, okay, well, these folks are using this thing to fight amongst themselves or to gain some kind of political ground. What really happens to us and our needs, which is what they said was the common ingredient for bringing this thing out in the first place. So what happens to those needs and wants? And I'm going to go back to the fact that there's no, look, it doesn't matter, pick along social strata, those who are educated, those who are in the corporate sector, those who are in whatever. People still don't have in terms of those who have read, there is a very tiny minority of people who have read these documents, who've read these provisions, and who actually know what is here in our faces being discussed at the moment. Very few have an understanding. And I dare say that a lot of people who are either going yes or no are going that way because of, number one, political pressure. Number two, if they're saying yes or no. Number two, if they're saying yes or no, they're doing that because of political alignments. Number one, they're saying yes or no because they need to be seen to have made a decision. But in terms of really understanding what is at stake here, when you append your signature to something, or when you say no to something, in terms of a real fundamental understanding of what you're essentially signing your rights away to or for, there's a very little minority of people who have read and understood what is at stake here. And is it a big deal? Absolutely, it is a big deal. It's not something that you can now sweep under the carpet. So I think even when these statements are being made, when somebody comes out for, when somebody comes out against, unfortunately, we've gotten to the place where you're going to have to question their motives. When you're going to have to question, really, what do they have? What do they stand to gain? What do they stand to lose by either supporting or going against something like this? You have to ask. You then have to ask the question, with the statements that were made yesterday, what's the end game here? You really care for Kenyans and think we need time for all these views to be expressed? What's the end game?
Okay, the end game, I would respond this way if that question was asked to me directly. And I mentioned it earlier on when we're looking at the headlines. There's this matter of deeds speaking louder than words. If someone is in a position of leadership and it's a political position. You are elected. That's how you are there. And the reason why people elect you, the majority, ensure that you have that position is because in one way or the other, they are convinced that you will be able to better their lives. To put it really very simply. Now, how many legislators actually ensure that their priority is not to talk about the benefits of the so-called ordinary Kenyan, but to ensure that that ordinary Kenyan actually benefits? It's one thing to sit in parliament and legislate. It's another thing to implement, because our members of parliament, even senators aside, have the means to ensure that certain things are actually done because they're given the money to do it. Governors have an even bigger bundle of money to do the same things. Why are we still dealing with cases of graft and misappropriation of funds in very many countries? Why? Because they have been flagged. The Auditor General looks at the accounts of all these counties and they find certain things don't make sense. It may be an audit query, but if it isn't responded to appropriately and there are indications that there may be something untoward about it, then people are called in to explain and to make statements. These things don't happen in a setting where everything is actually geared towards, barring a few human errors here and there, geared towards ensuring that the common citizen actually benefits. So, yes, long story made short, the BBI is not going to cure all the ills we have in this country. It most certainly will not. If the new constitution that we have cannot, neither will the BBI. That constitution needs to be amended. Makes sense because sometimes you can only see the sense in it once you start implementing it. And you realize, perhaps this idea was excellent, but if we tweaked a little this and that, it would work. But the BBI isn't about tweaking this and that. It's about tweaking a whole lot of these things. And that, again, is also part of the discussion. And it must be had. But the reason why this debate gets heated, we, Africans specifically, it's a human thing, but Africans, Kenyans, there's this quiet understanding that is loudly practiced that leaders are not supposed to be opposed. Who says? If you have been elected, if your position of authority is because people have given you that position, by all means, you really do need to be questioned.
They can then come back and ask you,
yes,
why have you decided to make this decision in this way?
Yes.
Or really, of what benefit is it to the entire country with the decision that is being made?
Yes.
And unfortunately, I see the pushback that has been given, and the question is, just from that, why would you question anything that I am doing? I am, after all, your leader.
Yes.
And I think we need to get away from that and get into that place whereby you can question the things that come about. It begs for then a more in tune and in touch populace. It begs for more people who are understanding what is really going on, as opposed to coming out and saying, I refuse this, or I assent to this. Do you really understand what is happening? I'm still stuck on that thing, CT.
It's an interesting perspective, but you know, you've heard me say this on many occasions. I'm going to repeat it.
And the Kenyans know what they're getting.
Oh, they certainly do. And they also know the rules of the game. Yes, on this matter of the BBI, there's a lot of information they may not have, and they certainly need to be given that information. They need to be educated. But as to they know what they're doing, they do. And I'm of the opinion that whereas political leaders think that they are in charge and that they control, they are set up all the time.
People walking around the streets, people going about their business on a daily basis, people worried about whether their children will go to school, people worried about whether their children are healthy. Is it at the forefront of their mind, or is it something that they want to get rid of? So somebody comes and says CT, yes or no, then you're actually thinking, hold on.
No,
what am I saying? What am I saying? What am I assenting my signature to? Am I supporting this thing or not? It's not.
With the exception of people who've just had the ability to vote recently because they've come of age, people who have been in this voting system and have voted and have had members of parliament, have had members of the local assembly, councillors, that process is something they've tested and they have tried. And part of the reason why you find that there is an acclamation for accorded to leaders, Mkubwa, the big one, all right? Mheshimiwa, the thoroughly respected one, okay? Kiongozi. Every time you hear that, you are not being acclaimed. this person is actually working and they expect payment at the end of it. They're not going to call you all those wonderful adjectives and then you do nothing. It's supposed to unlock your purse. Now you're telling me this person doesn't know. The person who suffers really knows they're suffering. If you don't have that suffering, you don't understand it. You think you do. If it was a suffering you endured in the past, usually people don't keep suffering at the forefront of their mind. They want to forget it as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, with the BBI, there's a need for the Mwananchi. Not when I say Mwananchi, I don't mean that special ordinary citizen, all citizens, because anybody who can read and write and those who can't need to understand what the BBI is about. To assume that those who seem to be slightly economically better off because in the middle class have read the document is a fallacy. They haven't.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They haven't.
I've not read it.
And it's available. They could read it if they wanted to.
Yes, but you see,
haven't.
the thing is, it seems to me as if people are still strapped to this idea that since the leader that you prefer, on whatever side it is, since the leader that you prefer has taken a particular direction, by virtue of the fact that you support this individual, you're also going to go in that direction. Or if your political affiliations and your affinity has been in one way, that's the way you're going to go. And I'm saying that it is unfortunate that people have been strapped to such beliefs and thinking for so long. Even if you say people are aware of the decisions that they're making. So you say, all right, let me get what it is that I need to get in this short period of time, and then think, I am saying, why are you satisfied with that little attention that you're getting? Why are you satisfied with that little token that you're getting? Why isn't there a push for more permanency in terms of the things that should be done to actually better the lives of people in this country, to better development? Not these piecemeal temporary solutions that are given to people because you go and have a meeting in a baraza with your leader. No. There should be that demand for permanency. Shouldn't, even if you understand it, then you should understand it even more. That I should insist that what we're actually looking for is not this deceit that comes at you every time there's an election or a referendum for that matter. When somebody comes and tells you, actually, this is the way to go. When in actuality, you have the power to say, thank you very much for this. But what we are really insisting on is a long-term solution to these perennial problems that we've been facing. Does it solve it? Is it the one-end cure-all for all of this? Is it? Perhaps it could be. But is it being explained to Kenyans in a manner in which they understand and then be able to take it up? For those who don't need the explaining, then you ask yourself, why are they not reading it? Why they're not really, truly understanding what this thing is about. And it's a problem.
By the way, explaining it doesn't cut it, not with such an issue. Explaining it. Explaining what exactly. You see, remember that when a political statement is made, you choose a statement that will serve the purpose that you have. That document is a massive document with all manner of things. Now, unless someone has a specific interest, you'll read a synopsis of it, a breakdown, a simplified version of it. That people will read. And even then, not all will read, even if you provide it. The issue here is, and this is what I was saying, this voter that people think are gullible, and I'm saying they are not as gullible as people imagine. The voter is not gullible. The voter understands their condition better than you. Now, you may think the 200 shillings don't matter. It does.
And that's what I'm saying. That 200 shillings, it will only last for so long.
Yes.
Why is there not? Because it will be 200 shillings. CCT, it will be 200
You've changed the
shillings.
discussion.
It will be 200
It's
shillings
not supposed
today.
to last long. It didn't exist, and now it exists.
Sure, but it only satisfies you for a certain period of time, right? You're
Everything
full.
on earth does, my dear.
No, but here you are looking for a solution, or you should be looking for a system, way of government, people in positions who are going to give you a situation whereby you won't depend on that 200 shillings.
Yes.
If things were working properly, that 200
Yes.
shillings would mean nothing to you.
Yes.
Because you don't have to come and ask for it. And
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. That's what the push should be
Yes.
for.
It's the same message that is given about going to heaven. But while we're still on earth here, okay, we are still here. Meanwhile, as we wait to get to heaven, all these wonderful things that are supposed to be done, that's the heaven that the government is supposed to provide in terms of provision for the citizenry. But while we are here, I need to eat on a daily basis. The 200 shillings caters for that.
But it doesn't solve the problem.
Of course it doesn't.
It
Just
doesn't
like
solve the problem.
getting
So you
a job.
continue- You're in a cycle of perennial problems
Yes, you
over
are.
and over and over again.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Now, if your need is actually broken down to something basic, are you going to focus on this thing in the future, or are you going to focus on what meets your need now? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Isn't that the question?
Yes.
I'm sticking on this point. It seems to me that there must be a push so that you don't have this problem of your daily bread every day.
By the way,
so that you don't have this problem of what am I going to do tomorrow? Because that's the thing. And again, it's not the job even of this same government or these leaders to put money in your hand. It is their job to create an environment so conducive that the things that you need to thrive are then provided for.
Yes.
Is there even an understanding of that? There are some people who believe that their MP is there to give them 200 shillings.
Let me explain something that perhaps I'm not explaining well. Huh?
I'll give you 3 seconds to explain it.
No. Keep your 3 seconds.
Keep my 200 shillings.
Yes.
I'm going to keep my 200 shillings and we're going to take a break on KTN Home for now. We're going to come back and continue with this conversation and invite your thoughts on this as well. This is the Situation Room. It is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
All right,
the weather with Spice FM.
County still, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 15 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nakuru. At 19 at the moment, we'll go to highs of 24 and lows of 12. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nyeri at highs of 23 and lows of 12. 11 will be the low in Eldoret today with 19 at the moment, going to highs of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 19. Highs of 29 and lows of 18. And it's mostly cloudy in Kakamega as well at 19. Going to highs of 30 today and lows of 14. Mombasa, raining at the moment. Lightly, however, it's going to be scattered and intermittent throughout with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Malindi is mostly cloudy, giving way to rain later with highs of 29 and lows of 17. We're looking at Kampala, it's mostly cloudy at 20, going to highs of 26 and lows of 19. We're in Dar es Salaam, it's raining at 26, highs of 31, and that will be the low of 26. In Johannesburg, it's cloudy at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Where in Lagos, it continues to rain at 25. We'll go to a warm high of 33 and lows of 25. And Kinshasa this morning still experiencing light rain at 23 with highs of 31 and lows of 23.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-bellied people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know.
Yeah.
She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, like it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Spice FM. Nyeri. Traffic.
Okay, let's take a look what it looks like now. How have things changed? It's still a clog up on certain parts of Mombasa Road, but then you're going to get through that. We don't have a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet, except for what we see from now, the SGR Mombasa Road, then towards Cabanas, but you're fine thereafter. Jogger Road this morning at the rail bridge, just after Donholm, that's where the accident happened, and it's still causing some trouble here in terms of traffic. Police are on site, but the snarl up is all the way into Outer Ring and Manaja Road because of this accident. So that area where we had thought you could use Outer Ring because of the Eastern Bypass before, that has changed because now of this accident on Jogger Road, and that's on the rail bridge. So if you're headed in that direction, there's traffic there, and the police are still trying to sort out that accident. So please avoid it if you can. The southern bypass, however, is fine. You're going to join with Kikuyu and Gong Road, and also joining on Langata Road. That should not be a problem now. Coming out of Westlands, looking much better. Visibility is better, so the traffic has picked up, and you don't have to worry too much. The Red Hill bypass, however, is open if you need to use that. Talk to us, won't you? Spice of MKE on Twitter or text on 40127 should you get stuck anywhere.
Spice up your life.
Tengisa kidole, tengisa kidole, agano kidole, agano kidole, agano. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room.
Morning with CT Muga and myself, Nduoko. Also tuned on into KTN Home this morning. If you tuned in on Spice FM, round the country, Nairobi to Mombasa to Kisumu to Eldoret, and also live online. The live stream is up on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. That's Spice FM KE. This morning, we're having a conversation on whether it is time to give more time, whether it is necessary to listen to the words that came from the Deputy President yesterday, after some time, after having taken a hiatus and said, okay, well, let's take a look at what's going on. Came out to speak, flanked by those who support him, flanked by those who are aligned to him in one way or the other, came out to say, look, thank you for the work that you've done so far. He was very gracious. Thank you also for taking into consideration some of the demands that we made and some of the inclusions that we suggested. However, what is the rush? And that's the question we're asking this morning. For you to talk to us on 0719-016-200, 012-600, sorry, and to tell us, do you think this process needs more time? Do Kenyans need more time to digest what's going on here? Do Kenyans need more time to understand the very tenets of the BBI, the initiative, the 9 points? Should more time be given to this? It would seem that there was some merit in what he was saying, at least from those who were around him, and maybe people had a finger to the head at the moment and they said, is it possible for us to take more time to figure out what is going on here?
Did he state or give a definitive measure of this more time?
He suggested that, a referendum could also be done at the same time as an election. In less than 2 years, there will be a general election in this country. So why not, give it that time? You've already given it 2 years, so give it another 1.5 years and then have this referendum take place at the same time as the election. Who's it going to hurt?
Consider for a second, those who brought about the issues of the BBI had a timetable that they thought was suitable for their purposes. Right. Now, if the day of the election in 2022 suits their purposes, who knows? They may even decide to have the referendum then. If it doesn't, then they will certainly not push for 2022. But please bear in mind, even as we say all this, when you have a gathering of people, I would be hesitant to say that these are people who support him. Yes, there may be those among that crowd who support him. There may be those who have gone there to simply determine what one can get. There are those who probably have no intention of supporting him whatsoever.
All right. Well, let's hear from Tony Mombasa whether he has an intention of supporting him, whatever. Tony, good morning.
Morning, how are you? Habari yako Citizen?
Salama kaka, uko mzima?
Nashukuru. Habari ya ndu?
Mzuri kabisa, Tony. How are you this morning?
I am tired.
You're tired?
Yes, I'm tired about this BBI thing. It is high time we just shut it out. So, your referendum ikuja. We've already made up our minds. We know what is there, and we don't want it.
Okay.
because we are legitimizing our bad manners in politics. What do I mean? Come 2022, regardless whether BBI passes or not, believe me, there'll be discussions about a handshake, something, government of inclusivity, blah, blah, blah. This is now a routine. Whoever will be second will deny, will refuse to accept the results. Then they'll start talking about, we need inclusivity, blah, 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 I'm ready. So all this is just about political, seats and power, sharing of power.
So for what you're saying, we don't even need more time. What we need to do is just throw this thing out from what you're saying.
Let it come. This dilly-dallying is what now pisses people off. You have talked, you have done everything. There are people who are going to collect their signatures. Let them collect. But bring it, we vote for it, and according to what people are saying, we are going to drop it, and we move on. Because next year, come January, we need to discuss about how children are going to school.
Okay, Tony.
And we have court.
Asante Sana. All right, let's hear from other folks this morning. Ed Gitonga in Nyeri, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Ed. How are things on your side?
I'm doing good, too, but the evangelist is not around. Now, here's the thing, I agree with Tony that this thing we should do away with.
Yeah.
And I also would like to point out that I think, in a way, the media, we are really playing so much of BBI. And I can tell you this for a fact. Like, for example, there's some area in Nanyuki, some 3 days back, some guys were being told, sign makaratasi ndio mpate kazi. But in the real sense, it's the BBI that was being driven. I can tell you this, no, you see, what Boniface Mwangi said some 2-3 days ago, the power is with the people. That one I agree. We should just get done with this. That is one. And two, what Kipuda Kibona said, we should break down this thing, and then people will understand.
Understand.
And break down, yes, exactly. And to break it down, we need time.
So
I know Ndu, you've never had me say this, but for once, I support the DP in this.
This is what I was going to say, actually. I said, well, Ed, so what you're saying essentially is that we need more time, allow us to understand what this is all about, and then we can go and make a decision at the ballot.
Yes, but we should remember this, that we are applying a Band-Aid to a wound that needs stitches.
That needs surgery. Okay,
yes,
all right.
Honestly speaking, this is a systemic problem. It's not going to solve anything. BBI or whatever other new constitution or new amendment is going to come. The problem is systematic.
All right, Ed, thanks for your calls this morning. All right, let's hear you too. All right, let's hear from Jimmy in Malindi. Jimmy, good morning. Hello, Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning too.
Yes, so what do you think?
I hope you hear me clear.
Yes, very loud and clear. And we're also hearing from you. What do you think? Do you think Kenyans need more time to digest what's going on, or are we ready to go to a vote?
What I believe, even the devil himself, he says, please, we need more time. We need more time. Kenyans need more time.
Okay. Jimmy, did you quote the devil, or did I hear you correctly? You quoting the devil?
I was going to ask where this...
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
I dreamt the devil was saying, no, to BBI. No.
Oh, you had a dream.
Even the devil himself has to the BBI.
Okay.
In which way? It has a good agenda, but we are taking things so rational. Look here. Our president said when they were launching it, other citizens will come. Kenyans will go, but other citizens will come there, and it will keep on amending. He even said that the American Constitution has been amended, I think, over 37 times.
Yes.
We are not America. You can never compare the dollar with the Kenya shilling.
So do you think we need more time to figure this out? Or no?
Yes, please.
We need more time, or let's go now?
We need more time, and I'm explaining, saying that we cannot keep on amending something which has no hurry on it. We need more time, Everybody who has an opinion, like I was saying yesterday, the opinion about double citizenship, which a Kenyan may never get double citizenship through marriage of other countries, but we should all have views so that when we come to correcting this thing, we correct it properly and well.
Okay.
There is no need to rush the bride while the wedding is 2 months to come, and you are rushing the bride now.
Thank you very much for those thoughts.
We need time for this.
We need time for this. All right. Thank you very much for that, Jimmy. All right, we're going to hear from Peter. Peter in Kisii. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. Naomba tu nitumie lugha ya Kiswahili.
Tafadhali endelea kaka.
Okay, mimi niko nauliza, niko nachangia hivi. Unajua tuko na serikali na tuko na mwananchi. Naibu wa rais anafanya kazi na serikali. Sasa tumemwona yeye kila wakati analalamika vile mwananchi analalamika. Na acha tuambie ni kitu kipi akubaliani. Kuna agenda 9, atuambie ya kwanza, ya pili, ya tatu, ya 4. Atuambie hii na hii ndio sijakubaliana na wengine. Tufanya aje? Sasa analalamika na sisi tunashindwa sasa. Tufuate nani? Tufuate rais ama tufuate naibu wa rais? Naomba wananchi wasome hizi agenda 9, 1, 2 mpaka 9. Wajue kana kwamba kuna mama mazuri ndani na kuna wengine mama mabaya. Naibu wa rais kenye kamsumbua ni zile posti prime minister naibu wake, hiyo ndio inamsumbua. Anadanganya itakana kwamba hii kitu ni kibaya, hii kitu ni kizuri. Wacha aseme hapa juu ndio sikubaliane, lakini hapa chini tunakubaliana. Iwe rais hivyo tu, tuache mambo ya magombano. BBI ikuje kesho, next week tupige kura, tumalize, tuanze maisha vizuri. Asante.
Asante sana. Okay, let's hear from Lydia in Parklands. Lydia, good morning. Hello, Lydia.
Hello, Spice FM. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that BBI, President Kibaki gave us a nice small government, and he told us make ICT tax-free, mobile phones tax-free, so that he could introduce ICT into schools. He really started doing work. And this BBI group, Raila and his KANU bosses, gave us the post-election violence and gave us the biggest bloated government in the world. And they wanted to be the eaters, not the doers. And now they are waking up again as BBI to give us another double bloated government to be the eaters and not the doers. Kenya Constitution is already the best one in the world. So BBI should wait. There's no rushing. We had enough from BBI group as post-election violence people.
All right.
They don't know what peace is. Thank you, Spice FM.
Lydia, thank you very much. All right, Nelson's been holding for some time. Nelson in Diani, good morning. Hello, Nelson.
Hello.
Hello, Nelson. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm calling you from Diani. You guys have come for a holiday.
Oh, you have come for holiday, but BBI clearly is still on the agenda.
BBI is, yeah, okay, very fast. I don't think we need a lot of time for this.
Okay.
This thing is so political, and an idea that its time has come as a push it off.
Sure.
So for me, if this is my idea, why is Ruto putting it together with the 2022 election? His muscles have really been strained.
It's a suggestion he has made.
Yes, like Atuli just dared him the other day at Bomas. Let a referendum. Let's go for this. You see, and then this guy just sat down and said, okay, by the way, if you go to referendum and the way the signatures are being collected here, so let's do the other tweaking at 2022. It's a political system, my idea. And time yake ni hii. Bring it on. Let's see how it's going to change our lives. But the 2010 constitution, it's idea, but we still need more. The BBI is going to help us even more.
So let's go with it now.
Let's go with it now. Why are we waiting for 2022 general election? To make it was 2022 general election. Let's put it together with the election. Why?
Well, thanks for your thoughts, Nelson. Asante sana.
Karibu.
All right. Let's hear from Rachel in Kinangop. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I am 16 years.
Uh-huh.
And I told the people who are collecting the signatures I have no identity card.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, it doesn't matter. We are not signing the BBI. We are signing a file to ask for the BBI.
Just say that again, Rachel. They told you that what was going on?
They told me that we are filing so that we can ask for the BBI form.
Okay.
And I told them that I have not even read it, and they told me it doesn't matter.
So who was
And so
this
I
that
sent
told you this?
The people who are collecting the signatures there in the town.
Okay.
And which area is this?
And
You said you come from, Rachel?
Kinangop.
Aha.
And I have no ID card. I have no voter's card. I have nothing, but I sent the BBI.
Oh, you signed it? You went ahead and signed?
Yeah. What I'm pointing out is that they don't respect the legal system. Like, they don't ask for... Yeah.
That is a point well made, Rachel. Thank you.
Well made. Thank you for that, Rachel. All right, let's hear from Jacob Kipkoech in Eldoret. Good morning, Jacob.
Yes, hello, Spice FM.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you. I want to comment over the same.
I'm going to ask you to turn down the volume on your radio, Jacob, so that we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm saying concerning. Okay, I want to contribute over the same, and I also have a feeling that the current amendment to the constitution isn't something that is very serious. I want to speak on behalf of the youth. Now, when you see what they are saying about the youth is they are going to give us a tax-free society, as in we're not going to pay the taxes for around 7 years, which is not even genuine because because you want to tell me I'm not going to pay the tax. Well, I'm not employed. How do you expect me to pay the tax without employment? So the current thing that I'm expecting from them is at least they give us a job, and then they can even tax us, no problem. But now, if you're telling us that you want to give us a tax holiday, it's not something even genuine. Two, what you are facing currently in Kenya, we have a pandemic within our midst, but now what we are prioritizing is BBI. Is it even something nice? Now we are seeing the doctors are almost striking, and you want us to use money to do it for a referendum. Is it even, I want us to make it something that is going to help us. Let's do it something which is coming first, our health or the BBI.
So you think we should wait and figure? You think we should wait, Jacob, and figure other things out first?
For even a bit a longer time.
Or should we just do away with the BBI completely?
Okay, if they want it. Okay, in fact, I don't even see the need because I want them to tell us 100 problems that we are facing currently in the current constitution before we do the amendment. So what are these problems that we are facing? If you are telling us that you want to unite Kenya, so how are you going to unite Kenya when all the leaders are not even together? You see, the BBI came in and then someone else was not out. So how do you expect to unite the Kenyans? So that thing should wait. At least we need a lot of time about it.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments, Jacob. Let's hear from Solomon, who is in Mombasa. Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning, Ndu.
Yes.
What is BBI?
Building Bridges Initiative.
No, it is a scenario where a father has 14 kids. They are struggling even to pay school fees and food. Then he calls you to a meeting and tells you, I'll take you to Braiban and you'll move from Korogosho to go and live in Runda if only you allow me to marry another 2 wives. That's the state that we are in this BBI.
So not a good one?
You've lost me a little bit. I got the 2 wives bit.
That you did.
Yes. I also understood Korogosho and then Runda. Okay. So how does this relate to the BBI?
I'm saying, you see, Kenya is struggling. Then you're being promised a lot of things, good things, if only we allow people to add more positions or to allow a larger wage bill in the household. Yeah. So the little that we have, how can we manage it? Yeah. In fact, the parliament should be from now to 90, go back to 10. Senate from 47 maybe to around 7. MCA from I don't know how many thousands to around a few ones. Yeah. The 100 parastatals, the ones that are very ineffective, we remove them.
So do you think, with what the DP said yesterday, I just have to ask that, Solomon, with what the DP said yesterday, do you think that the country needs more time to kind of digest all of this and then make a decision thereafter?
Yes, because you see, this thing is just maybe 1 month or 2 months after the whole document was out for the public to read. And at least we should be given a year or so for people to digest, to make other submissions. Because these people are...
Why a year, Solomon? Why not 1.5 years or 6 months?
Yeah?
Why 1 year? Why not 1.5 years? Why not 6 months? Why specifically 1 year?
Even up to 3 years. Because one, I don't believe the 40 million Kenyans have read it, or maybe the 25,000 registered voters have read it completely and understood.
Okay. Secondly, that would be million in terms of voters.
Secondly, politicians are saying about the BBI different issues.
Yeah.
Same, for example, when it comes to parliament, we have different views. And I like how the DP says that we should be given options. It's not a yes or no thing. For example, you are given option A, president, a deputy president, a prime minister, blah, 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 this kind of parliament. Option B, a king, a queen, a prime minister, cabinet, no MP, whatever, those kind of options.
Okay.
So that people now can choose what kind of option will best suit for us. Because either of the options, whoever will win the election will put his guys
I like
there.
the king and queen thing. That's a nice touch. So who would want to be the king of Kenya or the queen of Kenya?
Oh, the queen of Kenya.
Nice touch.
Thank you very much, Solomon, for your comments this morning. Let's hear from Wycliffe, who is in Nanyuki. Good morning, Wycliffe.
Good morning.
Yes.
I want to just totally support what the DP said.
Okay.
Because as from his speech, he said that it is not too late to do something which is right.
It is not too late to do something which is right.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, he said that the BBI is not 100% comfortable, and it is at the same time not 100% uncomfortable. So, for example, and he gave a very good example about the 35% that is going to the counties. And he said that he is comfortable with it, but at the same time, he is uncomfortable with about the ombudsman. No, then why do you need Kenyans to support a document that they are half comfortable and half uncomfortable, or at the same time force the people to reject a document that is half good and half bad?
Wycliffe, can I ask you a question? Do you really think there will ever be a document that every Kenyan agrees with?
Not really. But from the way, from my look, and this is the question that the DP once asked. Why don't
Okay, all right. I think we got dropped on that one. Let's take a call from Samuel in Turkana. Good morning.
Yes, madam. My name is Samuel. I'm calling from Lokori, Turkana.
Okay, Samuel.
Karibu sana, Samuel.
Asante sana.
What do you think, Samuel, on this conversation?
Yeah.
Do you think we need more time?
The issue of BBI is not timely. Because one, there are more deep underlying issues that our leaders need to address as we are as per now. There are issues of the pandemic, that is corona. There are issues of insecurity, and there are issues of economic empowerment. And you see, the speed at which the BBI is being driven leaves us with a lot of questions. You know, if something is good and has been brought on the table, then everyone will always smile and say this is the way to go. But the moment there are people who have reservations, there are people who really want to give their comments and contribution, but it's like the speed at which they are taken is not actually nice. It leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions.
So by virtue of the fact that people are asking for more time, by virtue of the fact that people are complaining about other things going on, that is enough reason to say, hold on and look at this thing properly.
Yes, we need to scrutinize. We need to have a postmortem of the document, because right now you cannot jump and say that this is the way to go or this is not the way to go, because there are a lot of people on the ground who have not gone through the document. So the document requires more time so that you can scrutinize, understand, internalize, and give and know now the way to follow. But as for now, saying it's a good document, a bad document, no, we
Samuel,
need more
can
time.
I ask you a question? Have you read the document yourself?
Yes, I'm now halfway. Hello?
Okay,
I'm listening.
Yes, you're halfway.
Yes, I'm halfway, but I think by next week I'll have now my proper stand and opinion over the same document.
Thank you very much for your comment, Simon. We are going to take a break right now on this conversation in the Situation Room, and also time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. We'll connect with you again tomorrow, but for our listeners on Spice FM, the conversation continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So, I mean, this is what we're talking about. The conversation continues, and we're saying, look, with what came out yesterday, would it seem that a lot of people were going with what the DP said, that, look, we've suggested...
A lot of people, meaning?
The people who he was flanked by,
yes.
The sentiment may be coming from people that
use the
were
word
around him.
Some people.
Yes. One is...
I'm quibbling over shillings and cents here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Go on.
But even if it was one, and I mean, that was interesting what Solomon said just before we went to the break, that, you know, if it's one person, if it's two people, is that enough? And of course, now comparatively, is that enough to say, let's sit back and have a conversation? If things are popping out of the woodwork and people are saying, okay, maybe we need to think about this. Maybe we need to talk about inclusion here. Maybe we need to talk about what needs to be done for doctors, what needs to be done in other parts of the profession, in other professions that's not being taken care of. Is that not enough? If there's a cry for wait and see, is that not enough to say, wait and see? Or because we've gotten to the point where we are at, just go along with it. And some people, I think, already have apathy and are saying, okay, you know what? We started this conversation a long time ago. We took all of these things into consideration. It's a bit late for you to be coming to us to tell us that now this was not considered, or it was not born.
You know, when one looks at the BBI, among the things that it has actually brought out, and which I personally find not only pleasurable, pleasant, but also groundbreaking, is that we have taken conversation in this country to a different level. And this is a good thing. Views are being expressed. You know, even as we talk about views being expressed, they are being expressed. Thoughts about the BBI, pro, against, neutral, whatever, they are being expressed.
Being expressed, being taken into consideration may be a different thing.
You see, that we already have information that what we are now being presented with was altered. It wasn't what was previously presented. My friend, it tells you that someone is listening.
Somebody's listening somewhere. Okay, let's look at some of the comments on social media this morning. James says, the team that came up with the BBI was given a lot of time. Why do they rush Kenyans into this scheme? Kenyans need more time to analyze this. Plus, we also have a pandemic that is a threat to our lives. Mwalimu Samuel says he is right, he being the DP. The report should not be forced on people, since we live in a democratic society, and also to avoid a heated battle which can lead to violence like it did during the Chungwa and Ndizi referendum in 2005. Thomas says BBI is not a priority with a struggling economy and COVID. Implement the current constitution to the letter. Kenya is suffering from leadership deficit and not from the constitution. So this is what we hear from. I can't support any document tactic to derail the BBI process, according to Alamano Kipchumba. His proposals that he raised at the Bomas of Kenya were captured. Why should we have this kind of disturbance again? So
the question that I'm asking is, why are people feeling it's being forced down their throats? Why is there a feeling that it's being rushed? You see, there's a narrative about it being rushed. There's a narrative about it being forced. Must you sign?
You don't have to sign. Furthermore, if it does actually go to referendum, you don't have to vote yes.
Yes, so
you have an option.
Where does it being forced comes into the discussion? There's a lot of vigorous campaign about it. There's a lot of mention about it. Just like there's mention not about it, there's a lot of mention about everything. There's a lot of activity around BBI. Where does the forced, where does it being rammed down people's throats, where does it come into the conversation?
I think also that you see the reports that have come out that state machinery is being used to get people to append their signatures to this in order, for you to meet the threshold then to go to referendum. That should that be the case, that let people come and sign. Of course, the example with the Third Way Alliance and Okuro previously, when he went about and got the 1 million signatures, didn't use state machinery, didn't use any kind of state resources, but got what he needed to make sure that people give him the signatures that were required. Here, a different case, and that's.
Do you remember the good professor?
People could be talking about.
The good professor told us that there are two ways of going about this. Okay, the people way or the government way. But we're now seeing, should we say, a combo?
Okay. We're seeing a combo. The conversation continues. We're going to go to the top of the hour now and take a look at traffic, and then we'll come back and we will continue with these conversations. People have different opinions. Let's see which one carries the day.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, looking a little bit better on the bottom. Sure. Let's look at where we saw there was an issue before on Donholm, in the Donholm area, right on Mananja Road, and that meant that because of the accident that took place there was a bit of traffic. Unfortunately, now on the southern bypass, where things were looking really good, there was an accident involving a meat van, and now this has spilled meat into the road, and now traffic heading in both directions has been affected. This is not a good one. It looks like a MASH sort of situation. Speaking of MASH, on Kiambu Road today, as you try to get to the Thika Superhighway, that's moving very slowly. Coming out of Westlands, that's looking pretty good. You can use the Red Hill bypass if you need to. But the accident on the southern bypass is the one that's causing drama this morning, and that's where we see heightened levels of traffic. Nyama, nyama, nyama everywhere. Literally, there's nyama on the road, and it's affecting traffic here. Dagoretti Corner, Njiro, Kayamako, we see some traffic there as you go towards the other side. That's because the meat that's being dropped off there for some reason has delayed this morning, so there's traffic there as well. Okay, we'll take a look at what it looks like shortly. Get in touch if you see a place that we need to sort out. We'll give you the information about it at the very least. Spice FM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch, or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
The only way to start your day, you're tuned into Kenya's biggest conversation. This is The Situation Room, tuned in all over the country, Kenya, and in cities across the country. Nairobi on 94.4, and he's look at where we are tuned in across the country as well. You're also tuned in. The live stream is up, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And the conversation continues this morning. Myself, Nduoko, and C.T. Muga, as we go on. C.T., today's proverb.
Indeed. Deal gently with the faults of others as your own, while weighing words, not counting them.
Deal gently with the faults of others.
As you would your own.
As you would your own. Because you too will fail, or you would have failed.
Guarantee. If that one, if I may use the completely exhausted and overused phrase, you can take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank. Right, so we're having this conversation. I mean, just hearing what different people say as the conversation continues this morning. Not to forget, you can talk to us on social media, on Facebook, talk to us on YouTube, and also on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Talk to us also on 0719-012-600. As we recap this conversation that we have been talking about, where, you know, people feel we need more time. People feel that, all right, something is being stuffed down their throats in terms of what they should accept when it comes to political dispensation, when it comes to how we're going to be led and governed, when it then comes to who's going to share what. There are some people who have taken the conversation of this initiative and the amendment of the Constitution and made a decision based on one thing. And you asked the question earlier, CT, can everybody really be happy? Will you say that at one point everybody is totally satisfied with everything that has been presented, and from there is when you move on? Will you ever get to such a place, or does it seem impossible?
You know, that's why I have words like consensus. Consensus doesn't mean unanimous. That everybody agrees. No. One could argue, if you were to take the litany of the tyranny of numbers, or in this case, the tyranny of democracy, where somehow it's a rule of the majority. And what that implies that the majority don't have to be right. No, they don't. The minority could be just that, a smaller number, but they may have the valid point. But if the system you're using is one where the majority decision is what determines it, then they will lose out. But the debate brings about a more equal position because the debate then continues. And so the participation of other views into this discussion is now what that dissent brings about. But remember, our background is dissent is seen as something negative. For the longest time, it was anti-government, anti-establishment. Those are terms that were used for the longest time. So the mindset is anytime someone disagrees with you, and take it now, the paternalistic African household perspective of father of the home. That's not someone you even debate with. You listen and you obey. Now, bring it down to leadership. Father of the nation. Terminology here. Father of the ward. Father of the constituency.
Of the county.
Yes. The same role of the father is sometimes expected. That's why I was arguing vigorously earlier on that the issue of someone giving in a leadership position in an African setting, you are expected to
give.
Oh yes, you are the leader. It is taken that you have more than other people do. So when they have a problem, they come to you. It is understood. Now, what the government does, the government takes over that role. So the government now becomes father. So the government provides, makes sure that those who don't have an even playing field, so to speak, is brought into being. But when you talk about consensus, you see, consensus, we are saying, I believe, is please arrive at it, but from an informed position.
But this is the same thing that the Deputy President was saying yesterday. Those are some of the words that he used quite heavily in his address, where he talked about the fact that consensus needs to be arrived at.
You see,
that the majority of the people then need to be on the same page. And from what he's seeing and the position in which he stands at now, consensus has not been reached. Neither has adequate consensus building been,
remember that discussion about perspective and opinion?
It is his.
It comes to that because, again, the moment we talk of consensus, you're talking numbers. And it is a statement he has made. The evidence that is to the contrary can also be provided by the proponent and say, time. How long has this thing been going on?
2 years running.
Precisely. So 2 years is not enough time. So how much is enough time?
How much time do you need?
As to consensus building, I thought that was what this thing was all about from the very beginning. Now, you may throw in COVID, throw in the rallies. Both arguments back and forth will have sufficient weight. But the question is this. Is it not that this thing has been discussed thoroughly? No. That's a discussion that is being brought into the bigger BBI discussion. The bigger discussion, if you ask me, the real big discussion is, what do you think the Mwananchi wants to do? Not wants, to do. What they want, we know. They want security for their health. They want security of income. They want these securities. But what do you think they will do when it comes to support? Because now you're not talking about understanding, you're talking about support. What do you think they will support? And what do you think they will support is aligned with who do you think they will support?
The Wananchi Kenyans are going to support, or what in terms of what they will do, they will either retain or maintain the individual who is going to deliver the closest to what they want. That's what Kenyans will do. They will retain the individual or the individuals who are going to bring them closest to what they want.
Actually, what they want is often represented in the individuals, the delivery of what they want, rather. So who do they think will deliver?
There you go.
Yes. Who do they think will deliver? Now, that is a debate that a referendum resolves quite simply. Quite simply. And the truth of the matter is, people who seek to have this thing resolved, each party believes that that particular debate will be able to resolve it the way they think it should be resolved. What the debate is introducing, in my mind, and which is a good thing, is the understanding that the very perspective you think will be agreed upon may not be agreed upon. So the issue is, what then do you do? And the fact that you have a perspective, and there are people who think like you, that in reality there are people who have a completely opposite perspective and they're as equally vigorous as you. Now, this here is not a question of right or wrong, good or bad. That's not really the debate about the BBI here, in my view. The debate about the BBI is what those who propose it think it can achieve. What those who propose it think it can lay a ground, a foundation for achieving.
Whether it is personal achievement or national achievement, it really doesn't matter.
The two are tied together. With politicians, the two are tied together. You cannot separate, even the three, you can't separate them. The words that we use, that is the hook. That is the line that is used by politicians to rope in the support. Words. In this country, the words have been used far more than deeds. It's words. Now it's a question of whose words will have more weight.
More weight.
Yes.
And where then are you likely to throw your support based on the words? However, we also say that words have been thrown at things over and over again. And Kenyans have gotten to the point where they realize where it's words doing the rounds as opposed to any action that's going to come in place to implement anything that would actually work in the country. And I keep saying, I really wish that we're at the place whereby you could say, these are words. In terms of what I see playing out, in terms of what I'm really interested in, I will not deliver a vote. I will not deliver an appreciation. I will not deliver a decision on one who is not going to take us closer to where we want to be. It's not about what anybody says, CT. At the end of the day, when you're sitting in your house and you lack 1, 2, 3 things, and you're living in a country that has made a promise to deliver those things to you, and it's actually not happening, you could care less about somebody said what they stand behind a podium and say.
Actually, no. Not entirely true.
No, when you're thinking about the food that you're going to eat on a daily basis, do you really think what a politician is saying about what their personal interest is? You're not.
No, that you won't. But you see, words are an interesting tool because it's not just them being uttered, but who utters them, who says what. You see, we associate politicians with certain positions. We associate politicians with certain things that they lean towards. But more importantly, we associate politicians with what they do.
Exactly.
Now, this is what...
Or not
do.
Yes.
Now, the politician may not see this of the voter, but the voter is very clear in their minds. But the voter is equally clear about what will serve their interest. And if the interest that captures their mind is the immediate one, as you are raising, my friend, they will make decisions, not that they don't understand the long term, that they do, but it doesn't concern them now. It's like, was it Balzac, a French writer, who said that, things like democracy are an indulgence, I'm paraphrasing, of the bourgeois, the middle class. People who have some certain guarantee that they will eat tomorrow, all these fanciful debates about, they can have them. Now, somebody who contends with hunger on a daily basis, How much time do you think they have for all these delightful debates? That the debate, it makes sense, but okay, fine. Now, not in the future, my children. No. Now, me, today.
And this is what I'm saying. If this debate is not going to sort out something that solves that problem, then we've got it all wrong. At the end of the day, there are problems that people, like you're saying, are facing in the current. So if a debate that people are spending their time having over and over and over again is not dealing with those problems, then it's not worth having. And I continue to say it, that if you're looking at the development of a country, if you're looking at the things that people are looking for on a daily basis and they're not getting, any other debate is not necessary. It's not worth it because it doesn't fall within the purview of their immediate understanding. I'm looking for food. You're coming to tell me about inclusion and about how 5 people at the top are going to be able to run government.
You know what confounds the reality that you're presenting is the numbers that we see at rallies.
Because they're going to see what they can get. Let's take a look at the weather, CT. At least let's see if the sun is shining in some place or not. We'll be back in a bit.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. The weather with Spice FM.
Okay, so the clouds are still up in most parts of Nairobi. Hazy over the city today. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 19, going to highs of 24 and lows of 12. Mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 18, highs of 23 and lows of 12. Looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret at 19, going to highs of 24 and lows of 11. Mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 19, highs of 29 and lows of 19. Also in Kakamega, mostly cloudy, highs of 30 and lows of 14. Mombasa is experiencing light rain at the moment, highs of 29 today and lows of 25. Looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Malindi with a chance of rain soon, highs of 29 and lows of 17. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 19. We're in Dar es Salaam. It's raining this morning at 26 with highs of 31 and lows of 26. Johannesburg this morning is cloudy at 14. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. Lagos, light rain this morning as well. It's likely to go through into evening with highs of 33 and lows of 25. Taking a look then into Kinshasa, it's raining this morning at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Beijing is warming up to a whole 3. Sunny conditions, however, with highs of that 3 and lows of -4. 5 degrees in Paris. Light rain also at the moment. We will see highs of 7 and lows of 4. And it's clear now in London at 4. Highs of 6 and lows of 3. And finally for now in New York into Thursday morning, highs of 11 and lows of 4.
The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Spice FM, Malindi. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here. Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country.
We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. You're tuned in all around the country on 94.4 in Nairobi. Mombasa is on 87.9. Nakuru at 96.0. 90.9 in Nyeri, and Kisumu 102.5 and 97.9 in Malindi. Spice FM KE is a handle for Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where we are streaming live, and you can continue to talk to us about what it is we are conversing on this morning. Still continuing to look at issues affecting the country, BBI front and center, taking a bulk of the conversation. In the room this morning, CT Moga and myself, Nduoko, looking at this and trying to open it up a little bit and say, okay, is there time for this? Is the conversation around BBI one that Kenyans want to be having or are forced to be having? And bringing out this now with the signature drive that we see taking place, is it something that Kenyans are ready to take on right now? Or do they need more time to scrutinize this thing and look and say, you know what, maybe we need to have more time to understand what it's really about, read it and then accept it as it were? Or, okay, let's change some of these things to stop the perennial problems that we've been seeing around the country for so long. Let's just stop the problems and initiate this, change the constitution, amend it where need be, and then we can, live in peace, love, and harmony.
Look, there's the subject of taking advantage of a situation. There's a subject of misinforming people. There's the subject of actually allowing people time. All these are debatable points in this whole debate about the BBI. An opportunity presents itself for a politician. Are they taking advantage? They may very well be taking advantage. Are they forcing people? How exactly are they forcing people? When I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and cast my vote, or is it 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock every 5 years, no one forces me to go and vote. I decide. No one comes to my house to knock and say, please quickly go and vote now or else. No, I wake up. So, again, when it comes to discussion and the signing, have we heard any reports of people who refused to sign and were treated badly or mistreated or jailed or pushed around? We haven't. If we do, we will, and we'll get to understand it. All I'm saying is, you have a political situation here, and you have a debate, most of which is being led by politicians. Take it with a pinch of salt. Because everything that we're saying is in the mix. When words are thrown in, there are people who will resonate with it. People are being forced. There are those who will resonate with it. Because we've had in the past governments who have actually forced you to do certain things. If, for instance, you have a one-party system and you want a multi-party system, you're being forced. But even then, nobody forced you to vote. You didn't have to vote.
It's interesting, one of the things that the DP said yesterday, we can accommodate everyone. We can accommodate everybody's views in this process. Then we should not force Kenyans to vote for something they do not want. Let them get an opportunity to decide on what issues they want for the country. He asked proponents of the document to consider the issues raised and republish the BBI after consensus had been reached.
The word
so
forced.
It would appear, I mean, it just like you were saying, it would appear that he had concern, or he has concern for, the majority of Kenyans are saying they have views. Let those views be heard. There would be nothing wrong with basically starting from the beginning.
That conversation is just that, a conversation. The moment you use the word forced, as I said, the people will resonate with that word forced. The moment you say Kenyans need to be represented, there are Kenyans who will feel they haven't been represented. The moment you say everyone can be accommodated, people will feel, indeed, my views are as important as the next one. Now, even when we had the bombers, and how long did we take to get a new constitution? 20 years.
Yeah.
20. Okay? We don't need a new constitution. We already have one. And what has been agreed on, even as we talk about this particular BBI, there are things that have been understood and have been accepted. These can be changed. You don't need to go to anyone's parliament. They're administrative. They can be changed. It's understood. There's no beef there. But the beef we hear, it will not end. It won't end. There will always be people who feel that something else can be done and should be done. But then the question that I would ask if I was a BBI proponent, what do you need more time for? Yes, I mean, you're saying more time. Okay, 4.
So,
2 years have lapsed. Should we add another 1.5 years, 2 years? The point is, this debate is not going to end. Come the referendum, there will be a referendum, there will be debate then. The results of the referendum, there will be a debate then. As we head towards 2022, there will be a debate then. The thing that is a constant in everything we're doing, this conversation is not going to end. It'll heat up, it'll go down. Consensus is what the DP has actually shown. From opposing it
To
strongly,
now coming and
to
saying,
now coming and saying, folks, it's not as bad as not as bad as I thought. It's not bad, but we can accommodate more. That's a really subtle and clever way of saying this thing is inadequate. That's why we need to add more, because it's inadequate. But you see, the vigor and the negativity has gone out of the discussion. That's what I'm saying. There'll be more debates. Something else will come up with the referendum, and the debate will be heated again up to 2022. And even when we have elections in 2022, my friend, we will still be having this debate.
So do you, at some point, do you say, okay, we're going to cut off all this fat and trim this thing and say, okay, regardless, if you're dealing in a democratic space, which you assume Kenya is in right now, the views and the wants of people should be what would be seen to be regarded. We can't take away from that. It needs to happen. However, within a time-barred process like this, that you want to get all your ducks in a row, essentially, before you go into a general election, because that's what we're doing. The reason why all this is being done now is that you can have everything done and sorted before you go into a new administration.
And here everything means what exactly?
All the things that are in the BBI, for example, the things that caused you problems in the previous election, because that's where we were from. The handshake came about as a result of an election that was contested so bitterly in 2017. That was the problem. That's why these two gentlemen shook hands. As a result of that, the BBI was born. Now, when we are sorting out these issues, let's take into consideration other historical issues, and then we bring those in as well. There was inclusivity, there was a need for cohesion, there was a need for a national ethos, there was a need for so many other things to be brought into play. Let's deal with those things before we get into a new system of government, or rather, before we get into a new administration with new individuals, quote unquote, so that we don't have this problem again. So that we can apply these new things at the time of us going into an election, which is what caused the problems before.
Why don't I give an example of a process that has involved exactly the very same things you are saying to the letter, to the T. When we appointed the IEBC, the commissioners and the people in it, political parties made their appointment. They were not told who to appoint. They were not forced to. People made their appointments. Appointments are made politically in the hope that decisions, when it is brought to them, will favor you. If it doesn't favor you, forget the details of whether there is a point to be made or not. Just that simple point of it doesn't favor you. My friend, they will be held to pay. Yes. And yet, you and your teams are the ones who appointed those people. If ODM had won in 2017, rest assured the debate would have been equally strong. It's not as though it'll be less strong. No. It's just that in this country, we don't usually see anyone who's in government losing an election. We don't.
It's tough.
The closest we got to it was in 2002. But then the president was down leaving office.
He was leaving completely.
Office, and so he wasn't in office, and someone new was coming in. And that election is touted by many as one of the fairest elections we've ever had in this country. It represented what actually happened. But you mentioned historical evidence. Yes, the historical evidence, unfortunately, with us, and this is what I'm actually basing my discussion on, this debate will not end.
Okay, so let's see what some folks are saying this morning. John the Sun says, what if the BBI is voted in, the DP is not? It will bring tension in the country and probably election rigging. So that's an interesting point there. You have heard it for yourselves. How a 16-year-old signed for the referendum. To us, it was presented with a yes and no option. So it is forced, lied to, or are we just being manipulated? Are we being lied to, or are we just being manipulated? And this is from Michael Wagenya. Kiprotich supports this and says we need to go on. The DP has now proved himself to be a watermelon, and is why the president nicknamed him Jamaa wa Kutangatanga. Jesse Williams says the team that came up with the BBI was given a lot of time. Why do they rush Kenyans into this scheme? Kenyans need more time to analyze this. Plus, we also have a pandemic that is a threat to our lives. You never understand Kenyans, says Teacher Bunde. BBI never started yesterday to make us say it's being rushed. The DP was when the team was constituted, he was there. He was actually opposed to it. Why is he coming now and asking for more time? I don't think every view will be taken in, even if we are given 10 more years. So even if you're given more time, according to Bunde, it's not going to be accepted.
What will happen with more time is that there'll be more debate.
There'll be more debate and more and more things will
people will have an opportunity to change sides and do the other. But this is what I am saying is good for us. This talk, some people may consider it useless, but it is good because it also tests and determines the levels we have for tolerating divergent views. Because we will
Which is a good thing, no?
It is a wonderful thing.
It is.
It is a wonderful thing.
I also see a problem with this because we could be talking and talking and talking and talking, and more views and more views and more views would be brought in, and this consensus building would take an eternity. But in terms of landing this plane, it would not be landed.
Oh, this particular one will be landed. There's no question about it. We are going to go for a referendum. We definitely will have a referendum. This one, definitively.
So that's what I'm saying. All these views that people are talking about, if there was an agreement to take into consideration these views, you would have an unending process of viewing. But in this case, it seems to me as if the views, it's okay, you can say whatever you need to say, but we're already on our way.
You see, that, unfortunately, is a reality that sometimes is a bit difficult to face.
It is.
Because if my views were contained and I was part of that process, then even with the flaws, I'd be okay with it. If at some point I wasn't a part of it, for whatever reason, I didn't support it, I was left out, then I will feel no. Perhaps an opportunity for me to now contribute to the discussion is to place myself in a position where I can represent the divergent views that already exist. And this is an argument where I would say is the possibility of what is happening with the Deputy President. He understands. This is a seasoned politician.
He gets it.
He understands it very, very well.
Okay, let's take a break and look at what's happening on the roads right now. We come back and we continue with the conversation. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future.
That vehicle overturned and spilled meat into the street. It's being taken care of. It was headed towards the market, but unfortunately things have come to an abrupt halt. If you're headed in that direction, please take care. The traffic is looking a lot better coming off of Mombasa Road now as you get well into the morning. Also off of Thika Road at the Pangani underpass, it's going to slow down just a little bit, but it'll be fine then moving out forward. Coming out of Westlands, Easy Street, not so bad. It's moving slowly, but it's moving. We understand the construction still taking place there affects traffic through the day, but we won't have too much drama. All right, so apart from the southern bypass at the moment, it looks like it's doing much better than it was before. We'll keep an eye on things for you through the day. Also talk to us, let us know if you get stuck somewhere. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, or text on 40127.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation this morning in the Situation Room. You're in the room this morning with Siti Muga and myself, Nduoko, and we're wrapping up this conversation now on what it's been like to hear what the Deputy President had to say about time needed. And from his position, he seemed to have been echoing the sentiment of many a Kenyan, whereby more time was needed. I'm going to take a last call on this, and that's from Mohammed in Mwakijembe. Good morning, sir. Hello, Mohammed. Good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Mohammed.
I'm getting you.
Now I'm getting you.
Yes, Madam na mwalimu, good morning.
Good morning.
Habari asubuhi kaka.
Mimi nawatakia siku njema yenye baraka tele.
Asante
sana. Mimi nashukuru vile mnaendesha vipindi na mnachemsha sisi mpaka inabidi tupige simu. Mwalimu,
yes.
This Katiba thing and BBI, BBU, BB them.
Yes.
As long as you are morally corrupt and morally rotten. I'll keep on repeating, even if we write it with ink of gold and we dot it down with diamonds. As long as our leaders are selfish, they have their personal interest. As long as we Kenyans, the way we vote in a very abnormal way. Hata ukaletwa katiba ya Mungu, as long as there is no implementation to the data, as everyone says, we are just wasting our time, we are wasting our funds. Our leaders, plus we, whom we vote them in, we are morally rotten. The only solution is to be morally upright. Even the Katiba we had from independence is still very good. The only problem is implementation. Impunity is rampant. People are having their personal selfish interest. They are less concerned. They are not patriotic as it's supposed to be. Na kama yale makalio, however hurry they are in, they'll always remain behind. Even if you are in a hurry in implementing this BBI, bado tabaki kwa makalio. Thank you for my contribution.
Mohammed Asante.
Mohammed Asante.
Have a good day today.
Thank you, sir. Same to you there.
Well, all right then. This is what we're looking at. And very many views that come out of this and that people have to say about, where we are going to go. And what our needs are at the moment and what you would hope the country would be. There are some who believe that this will take us into a place of conflict that we will not be able to get away from. Some say accept this so that we can please just move on and do something else with our time. Either way, the conversation continues.
When you come from a background where freedom of thought, well, you can't control it, but actions come from thought, is hampered. And then you get to a point where you actually get to understand and realize that you really are at liberty to think free and then express. When you see a preponderance of it, that realization means has taken force.
Yeah.
So people understand, we can. And social media has enabled us to do that to a very large degree. People can actually voice their opinion. Some take it to some really serious ends where they insult and they say deplorable things that really one shouldn't say in the public domain. But that is what happens when you open up space. So the debate, as we say in this very room, let the discussions continue.
Sure. And one discussion that actually has to continue is that of taking, this is a day that we're commemorating. It's a day that we remember. It's a day that we celebrate. The day that we think and remember people living with disabilities in this country. Even as we talk about the BBI, and one of the buzzwords for all of this has been inclusivity. inclusivity of everybody, regardless of what it is that you do, or regardless of how it is that you look, or the duties that you're able to perform. For decades, even at a time where we look at how those living with disabilities in our society have been forgotten, some even treated, unfortunately, as inhumanely as you can possibly think, having been caged up, having been boxed to think that there was something spiritually wrong with them, and, caged up for all their lives. To get to the point where we are now, sure, strides have been made, but I think we're still at the place where we're saying not enough has been done. And now we're saying, it's the pushing the conversation and still putting out that call to say, let the conversation be not just had, but let things be done to show that the interest actually is there. Beyond the interest, to actually put in place things that will make this inclusivity a reality. People living with disabilities in this country must really get the short end of the stick a lot of times. For example, who put this document in Braille? Who is making sure that people who can't get to a particular place then have that information brought to them? Are they ever included in the conversation when it comes to things that need to be done? And to get to the place where one child living with a disability and one child who is considered quote unquote normal are existing, working, learning in the same space. Can we get there?
Yes, we can. We're actually getting there because it's not just evidence. It is clear for anyone who wants that this is something that is happening more and more. But Mheshimiwa Nyonyi brought in something that actually was not only heartwarming, but it was pertinent. The effort that the Association of People with Disabilities within Parliament and the force with which they have decided to pursue the agenda for people who have disabilities in this country. See, focused. If you don't focus in that way, nothing will get done. Things won't happen. They are not leaving any stone unturned. They are not playing around with the idea. They make it a priority and said from 200 million shillings to move to 2 billion. Now, that is a massive step, 10 times the amount. That is clear thinking. And if you ask me more, okay, now, according to the 2019 census, people with disabilities are only 2.2%. That is 0.9 million. However, if you look at the care and the attention, the details that people who have disabilities require so that they can live what we call normal lives, it is a lot more than someone who doesn't have disabilities. So the amount may seem like it's a lot of money, but if you look at the needs that they have, the education for people with severe disabilities, for people who can't be in normal schools with other people, hospitalization for such people. Again, the education to socialize people so that they understand. It is a massive undertaking, but the focus, the actual focus. Now, while we're talking about this focus, you see, I sought clarity on an issue, and that clarity was provided for me. Remember, I talked about donations that were being given. Yes. Now, in my enthusiasm, I did not go into the details. I simply mentioned and asked KRA to explain these matters to us. I was given some clarification. Okay. Now, those who donate crutches and wheelchairs are Rotary International and Crutches for Africa. They're the two organizations, all right? Now, disability donations, PEPFAR does not give directly, but through Peace Corps, they deal with people with disabilities, meaning they use agencies to do this work. When you have agencies that do this work, it tells you that where they come from, they've long understood that it is necessary to give it that focused attention. Now, that focused attention, so that it's not pushed on the side, but it's part of a normal conversation. When you're talking about it, you focus on it. Now, that we haven't gotten to. We haven't reached there yet.
But why? And I think that's the real question. Why? Do we even have a footprint of those who need crutches in this country? Something that we said should be given free. We talked
and wheelchairs.
Honorable Wanyoni's talked about that. They should be given free.
Yes,
wheelchairs should be given free.
And prostheses for people who need them.
Do we even know the numbers of people in this country who are living with disabilities, who need walking aids, who need movement assistant aids? Do we know? We don't know.
We have an idea. We actually do. the census enabled us to get certain details. Now, the fractured and minute details that you refer to, there's an understanding of what it is. And the association that deals with disabled people will actually do have these figures. It's not that they don't know, they do have the figures. Now, remember, when you have a stigma attached to a subject or to an issue such as this one here, believe me, it hampers even thinking about it. When people are stigmatized, people don't want to discuss it. People don't want to deal with it. So anything that has to do with it is avoided. That's what stigma does. It is avoided. Now, when it is avoided, how then do you expect them to actually deal with the issue directly? How do you expect them to even address it when they can't even discuss it?
Because there's the issue that's attached to it, whereby you feel bad, or you feel that you were cursed, or you feel that
all these negative vibes that accumulate and become stigma.
So it's very difficult to do something about something whereby you already have a mental block towards that thing.
That is more than a block.
Sure, we're going to take a break and come back and look at how now probably breaking down those barriers is the way that we're going to be able to do something about this inclusion when it comes to disability in this country. This is Kenya's Biggest Conversation. You're in the Situation Room this morning. Don't go away. The conversation continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Chilled Spice.
Tengisa kidole, tengisa kidole, agano kidole, agano kidole, agano. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
We're continuing in the room this morning with Siti Muga and myself, Ndoko, looking at disability in this country and saying that, you know, there are certain things that we can do. Even when we look at the laws that have been put in place and the implementation that has not happened, there still is the barrier of the stigma that we need to get over. So you can imagine somebody who is sitting in an office and their job is to implement certain things. They have a budget, the money has been released, there's a policy paper that has been attached to this. What essentially they need to do is roll out this plan, which they've sat tirelessly and sorted out. But their mind is still wrapped around this idea that, actually, I don't know if I want to go into this, because their mind being now one of the biggest blockers is that I don't want to touch this idea of somebody who, unfortunately, in their mind is less than capable because of a physical disability that they have, whereby their mind might be able to move to another place. Why is it that we can't get over this stigma in our minds? It seems to be one of the ones that has been around for the longest time. Why can't we get over it? Why do we have to continue thinking about this person being less than human? And that's why even things like implementation cannot take place. That change cannot come about because there's this block and there's this boundary that has been set in the mind, and that is what stops us from doing so many things. You don't want to touch it. You'd rather deal with the other things that would be easy to roll out or easier to flow. And maybe that's one of the things that we need to change, starting to get people. And that's why I said you need to have, in my mind, a forced thing, because that's what would change stigma.
It's called affirmative action.
For sure. You talk about studies that you've done with HIV.
Yes.
And the individuals who are coming out and rolling those programs oftentimes are people living with HIV. So by the time you're telling somebody, come and get tested, you can actually live a very good life while you have this virus. The person who is speaking to you is also living with the virus. So you can actually see a physical replica of what this person is asking you to do. It's nothing far removed from the reality. It's right there in front of you. So if you have somebody that is in school with your child, at the same time living with a physical disability, and you see that the two can coexist in the same space, you're likely to come to terms with the fact that these people can operate in society without too much of a hindrance.
You know, HIV was treated like a disability. When you talk about the stigma attached to it, there are two colleagues of mine whom I worked with who understood this with great clarity, and they were at the helm then, and they helped implement it. Two medical doctors, one by the name of Jeremy Penn, another one, Reson Marima. They, together with the community engagement team that I was part of, understood something very simple. Not because we were clever and we read about it, but we saw. The only way we're going to get rid of this stigma was to make sure that even as you go about caring and treating people who are HIV positive, you include those who are HIV positive in your program. How? Employ them. So there was a deliberate policy to employ community health workers, qualification among, well, you can read, write, etc., but you're HIV positive. Now, they had to be trained in all sorts of things, adherence counseling and everything, but they became the ambassadors because when you talked about HIV and you had peer group discussions, these are people who are not giving you examples of other people. They were giving you examples of themselves. When you talked about the administration of ARVs and you talked about the value of ARVs, these are people who would talk to you about what they are doing. And they would even come with their drugs so that you know that this is what I take and this is. It was a lengthy process, but it helped stigmatize. Now, there are many people who work within the system, even within the fraternity of community work, who are not HIV positive. But it is when they themselves actually accepted, because remember, stigma was not just with those who are HIV positive. No, people who work in that field, community workers, healthcare workers, nurses, clinical officers, doctors, it bothered everyone.
Everybody. Yeah.
So now, when these people who were HIV positive, who were part and parcel of your community of co-workers, and you interacted with them on a daily basis, you got to understand even more intimately problems that people who are HIV positive had. So you didn't need to wait for someone, because these people who are your colleagues were also patients.
And it's not easy. And I think we need to also make sure that we say that we're not saying do something that is it's a walk in the park. It is a difficult exercise to go through. Here you are having not faced the reality of working, for example, with somebody with a disability, of having your children go to school with somebody with a disability, and then you're basically saying, start the process. It is not easy. It is a Herculean task. It is something that is going to take time getting used to. But the problem is, it would be worse if you didn't get into it. If you don't start the process, the results of having not done anything are actually worse than if you tried.
But you know what is of interest is the work that was initiated was groundbreaking, but other people came in later and followed in the same vision and even added to their own. So you find that fraternity of people who were working in that field, even when the leadership changed and other people came in, the vision didn't alter, but it was understood that changes needed to be made if you were to actually influence and have an impact. Because even as these changes came about, other changes came about. Stigma was lessened. When stigma was lessened, ARVs were easier understood. People got better. That getting better also brought its own problems. Because now, as some argued, you can't tell who is sick.
Right.
Now, the thing about the disabilities we speak of, many of them are physical. They can be assisted. Someone's life can be made easier. Now, that is a technicality. But what is required is for them to get to a point where they are treated as normal people. They're just people. The disability is a detail, but they're just people. Now, that sounds like a simple thing, but it is a very tall order for many people.
In
they
the
can't
mind.
get that kink out of their mind.
In the mind, in the mind, and not necessarily in the physical, but in the mind, that how on earth would I get to be able to treat this person like a human when I can see that there's something that makes them different from me, who's quote unquote normal.
This is where funding sometimes is useful, huh? Because if you look at, say, just the effort that PEPFAR put into care and treatment, you realize they would also come and say, this is what you need to focus on, okay? So it was something that was measured and it was something that was monitored. Now, because of that focus, certain things could get done. It wasn't amorphous. It wasn't just left to you to decide. You said, no, we want to focus on getting this. We want to ensure that viral load, the info, you take the samples, the turnaround time is listened to this. We would like to ensure that you reach this number of people by this time. There was a time when only 20% of our population had been tested. It was inverted. So we actually got to a point where you could comfortably say, close to 80% of our people have been tested. Even more. And then there was the push. Now, you see, you start somewhere and then you make the progression. The story of 1990, 95, 95, that didn't happen at the beginning. It's taken close to 20 years for it to actually take place. So in the same thing, when you talk about people with disability, you're actually not talking about the physical nature of people. You're talking about the problem being in the mind of people who live with people with disability, people who make decisions at a national level, and them understanding the priority that this must be given, and in ensuring that an implementation process is taken care of and put in place so that what we envision and what we talk about can actually be realized.
I also have a problem because then we see that a lot of people who are championing the change when it comes to inclusion are disabled themselves. And it shouldn't be the case. There should also be people on the other side of divide who are actually fighting for this cause. You will find that the people who are paying most attention to this, whether it's the clamor for legislation to change on a government level or even on a community level, a social impact level, it's often the people who are living with these disabilities who are the champions, or they are in a family where a loved one, somebody close to them, has also been affected. And you'll find that they take this on really seriously. It's got to be that even people on the other side of this actually help to champion, actually open eyes and say point conversations in that direction to say that something has to be done. I understand that it's the people who live with these disabilities that understand it best. I get that. But there needs to be a combination of effort when it comes to this inclusion that we are talking about today. It has to be. It has to be. Otherwise, the fight is nowhere near being won if not everybody is involved.
The people with disability, the people who feel the pinch the greatest, will be able to give it the momentum and the spirit it requires so that other people can also join. Because the truth of the matter is, left in the hands of other people who are not disabled, that thing won't move far. It'll be like a part-time thing that you do when you have the moment.
Let me check on
this. Yes, but someone with disability, this is not a part-time thing. You live with that disability on a daily basis. You can't run away from it. It's just there. So they push an agenda they're familiar with and they're able to articulate it better. And there are those who will see the need to assist and to join in that fight. They will join. Yes, they will join.
They will join.
And others who have disabilities who have not even seen the need to be part of it
will now want to be part of it as a result of what they have seen could be done for them.
Yes.
But then this thing of forgetting, I honestly say, even with egg on the face, when we looked at COVID, for example, that a lot of these folks were forgotten. It didn't even pop up in the radar that something needed to be done for people living with disability when it came to COVID times, in terms of them getting the allowances that they required, in terms of documentation then being made favorable for those who can't read because of sight issues, or who can't hear. It was not even considered.
If you have an idea how the Ministry of Health works, I'm sure there are people who came up with the idea and understood what needs to be done. There are people who know. And they say, look, folks, we need to do this. And the other thing is pushed up. There's a point at which it probably gets to, when it gets to us in the public, it has gone beyond. They say, okay, let me make it public. But if it's just pushed up and gets to a certain point and it stops there, we will not know it happened.
That's the thing. You won't actually know it happened, and then you will make the assumption that nothing was actually done.
And yet something was done, but it got to a point where now the usual debate of implementation, it becomes the usual debate of non-implementation.
Non-implementation.
Yes.
As we're coming to the end of this show CT today, and just looking at the things that we're hoping will be done as we go along into the future, share today's proverb with us.
Yes. Deal gently, operative word gently, with the fault of others as your own, while weighing words and not counting them.
As you would deal with yourself, with some kind of gentleness.
If you're harsh with yourself, then deal gently with yourself first, please. Because there are people who are unnecessarily harsh with themselves and they treat themselves badly. So it becomes very easy for them to treat others badly. But those are a minority. The majority are hypocritical to a fault when it comes to these things. Standards that they set for others are standards that they themselves never set for themselves.
So set the standards for yourself first. And then that's how you'll know to deal with other people. If you're comfortable with the standards that you've set with yourself, then it's easier for you.
Actually, look at yourself honestly. Not look at yourself in a light that pleases you. I am a good person. I am well liked. I'm a despicable person and nobody really likes me. If that is your truth, look at it. Then you have opened up the door for opportunities and for change. Yes.
Well, there you have it for a good lesson for today. We're going to be back again tomorrow and continue with this conversation. For now, we're going to say goodbye and hopefully you have a good day. We'll talk again tomorrow as we come back to Kenya's biggest conversation. From now until then, until 3 p.m. at least, uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. And then Monique will come and take you home on the spice drive, after which the adults in the room, being Barbara, Emmanuel and Eric, will come and take you into the night with conversations of an adult nature. So between now and then, have yourselves a wonderful day. The conversation will continue tomorrow morning at 6 p.m. You see? 6 a.m. It's actually going to be 6 a.m. Until then, do have yourselves a very good day. Take care. Remember, COVID is still with us. You must wash your hands, you must wear a mask, and you must maintain social distance. Take care of yourself. Even if there's treatment in the offing or a vaccine in the offing, you must be careful. Between now and then, take care of yourselves. And the conversation will continue tomorrow morning. This is Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's 10 o'clock.